damn it, John. John, God damn it. This is the second week in a row I bought a thing of coffee at the convenience store and it had a bunch of white poop floating around in it. So I don't have any caffeine this week, John. I just don't have.
I don't have that
caffeine.
problem as I open up my soda and drink it.
That's but you don't have caffeine. That doesn't have caffeine. Does Fanta have caffeine in it? I think it's just sugar.
No, it's caffeine free.
Okay, all right.
So I was wrong.
So none of us has. Nobody's got any caffeine, I guess.
I mean, I had Dr. Pepper earlier, but you know,
son of a bitch. Well, I'm going to just do the best I can with a belly full of nuts here on this week's episode of the Rage Select Podcast here on Rage Select, and I'm Jeff.
I'm John.
And John, we got a weird week full of horrors and bad stuff, and it's not the cheeriest news week. There's like a lot of like we got 2 stories about tariffs this week. So just let that ruminate.
Yeah, I know.
So it's going to be a weird week. So before we get into that, have you been doing anything recently that's been interesting?
Interesting to me, yes. Interesting to you and the Rage Select listeners, probably not. I mean, I went to a wrestling show.
I'm shocked.
A local wrestling show on Sunday.
Shocked, I say.
I took a shit ton of pictures.
Okay.
Posted them on Facebook.
Are you looking to go into a career being a professional?
Good God, no!
Wrestling photographer.
Like even the best. If you looked at my pictures, even the best pictures that I took are fucking garbage compared to.
Wait! I know a thing, and I have a question.
Okay.
Did they pull poor old man Undertaker out again? Because I think I saw like 4. The ratings for Monday Night Raw are bad, and so they've dragged the poor Undertaker out of his retirement home and put the hat on him and made him go scowl at a gold,
he appeared on Raw, but he also appeared at the international show in Saudi Arabia that was like the Super Showdown or whatever it was called, and had one of the worst matches of anybody's career.
Okay,
between him and Bill Goldberg.
All right, so. Yeah, they're just going to make that man wrestle until he drops dead in the ring.
I really wish they would stop. Like they just stop.
Yeah,
because he is not able to do. I wanted him to stop like 2-3 years ago.
Yeah,
and they still cart his ass out at least once a year.
Oh, that's sad. That's sad and bad, and it makes me mad. Well, see, last week I talked about how I was going to try to go back and watch Evangelion now that it's on Netflix. And so all I did this week was watch Evangelion, about 2/3 of the original show on Netflix. And it's funny because back when I originally watched it, I was very anti-Shinji, shall we say?
Yeah.
I was just like, God damn it, Shinji. You're just complaining all the time. You little mopey little bitch. Like, get in a robot and save the world. And like, oh no, my roommates are all hot girls. I'm Shinji. I'm depressed. But watching it now as a 40-year-old, I don't know if like I've got paternal instincts have kicked in or something, but I'm just like, would you guys let Shinji, like, would you just leave him alone for 5 minutes? Like, everybody's just always up his ass all the time about everything he does. And if he does something good, there's somebody there to be like, it wasn't really good. Like,
wasn't good enough.
It wasn't good enough. Like, his father is an abusive asshole. There was a scene yesterday where he was like, I hate my father. And one of their characters was like, well, have you ever thought about thinking what it's like to be him? And I was like, I was drunk. And I'm going to tell you, the last like 3 episodes of Evangelion that I was watching, I started flipping off the TV and yelling at characters. I was like, you let that poor kid he's saved the world 8 times. And every time it's fucked him up in the brain. And then you're making him his roommate. And then Asuka shows up and I'm just like, oh no. Oh, I forgot how much you suck, Asuka. You're the fucking worst. You're the worst of all time.
I haven't watched it. I've heard the dub is not great, and I've heard the Rhys Ups are not great.
Yeah.
They're a little bit too literal, from what I've heard, but
there's a whole thing that happens later on in the series that has very queer overtones. I say that as like that's the description that I've seen online a bit. Not like overtly gay, but just like male characters having a relationship that seems like it borders on the romantic but never actually goes there, and that it seems like the dub and some of the subtitles have been altered to in some ways kind of downplay it. But then I saw another thing online where it was showing like what are the subtitles in the the ADV Platinum release, what are the subtitles on Netflix, and what were the subtitles on the original release. And the original release subtitles also seem to be kind of downplaying that a little bit, even though, I mean, you can change the subtitles around all you want. Like, that shit... it's not covert, it's overt what's going on there.
Yeah, no. And also, for me, I'm probably one of the people that doesn't really care, because if I don't, like, I haven't watched it, but my whole thing was, like, if I want to go watch that original dub, I have those on DVD.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have those original ADV releases of
the ones those things are like really expensive now, though, right?
I think so.
$400 to get them off of eBay or something.
Yeah, but I bought them when they first came out. So
smart.
And I've got the all that stuff, and then I've got the re-released movie, the made movies, the remakes.
Oh, the redo.
Yeah, the redo stuff. I've got
1.11.
I think I've got all of but the most recent one that's been released.
Well, there's only one. There's three. The fourth one isn't out even in theaters.
I think I've only got the first two.
Okay. 3 gets weird.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to finish watching this, watch the movie, and then go back and watch those again, because I'm in it now. But yeah, I mean, I just feel bad for him, man. I feel bad for this little kid driving a robot, and everybody's just like, you suck. And it's like, God, what? Just like, give this kid, if he had like one human relationship and just somebody to give him a hug and be like, hey man, you want to go watch the new Iron Man movie? And then he'd be like, yes. Anytime anybody's nice to him, he's just like, oh, thank you.
And then they're like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, I feel really bad. I feel really, 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 really bad. Like in the second or third episode or something where he does something good, but he disobeys orders from his direct superior, and afterwards he's so happy. And his superior walks up and slaps him upside the face and is like, don't you ever fucking not listen to me ever again. It's like, yo, man, he just saved the world. Maybe just be like, all right, look, I know that, you're happy, but we got to talk about how when I tell you to do stuff, you got to do stuff. And yeah, you did it good this time, but we can't guarantee that's going to happen every time, instead of literally slapping upside the head, calling him a piece of shit, then walking out and leaving him in weird jail, corporate jail. No, corporate military jail. I don't know what nerve is. I don't know what they are. Anyway, so I'm all the way back in it. If somebody was asking on the Discord server, like, should I watch this? And it's like, I'm going to tell you the same thing that I told them. It's definitely a part of anime history.
Yes.
If you like anime. Now, I didn't understand it when it came out, because I hadn't seen things like Gundam up until that point, but it very much is a deconstruction of mecha shows like Gundam. Yeah. It's just I hadn't seen enough of those shows to understand what it was. It'd be like if The Dark Knight was like the first Batman book that you read, and you didn't understand like its relationship with the rest of Batman, or like
in that time frame,
or like Watchmen. If you just read Watchmen, but you didn't have any real exposure to the Golden Age, stuff that it's talking about.
I believe that there are people that have done both of those things that you just mentioned and proclaim them to be the best thing ever in the history of everything.
Sure,
and it's like, it's still Watchmen still understandable, but.
John, you don't like The Dark Knight. I don't.
I fucking hate that book.
It's fine, but it's just the thing is I didn't have the context, because when EVA was coming out in the States, like anime wasn't. I keep talking about this, like this was on VHS tapes, and like anime was not widely distributed in the United States.
No, it was usually you had to get like fan subs or
like I was searching for just straight Gundam for years, just straight like the first one Gundam. And I wasn't really able to find.
And you couldn't find them you couldn't find the videos at like Best Buy or any place that sells movies. You had to go to like anime specialty shops
or like a convention and buy fan subs off of somebody.
No, trust me, I've been there.
But what I was going to say is, if you're interested, watch it on Netflix. Right?
Yeah.
If you find it to at some point start being too stupid, turn it off and go on with your life, right? Don't just hate watch it all the way to the end, because there's a certain point where it starts getting weird, and I'm going to tell you right now, it never stops. So it just gets more weird.
I will say it starts off kind of slow, if I remember correctly.
It's because pretty fast.
I remember being kind of bored in the first like 3 or 4 episodes.
I mean, the first thing that happens is like the first scene, I think, is that Angel the first one coming out. Like
a lot of long shots of grass with cicadas chirping.
Strangely, that doesn't happen till later. This is what more post episode 17.
It's one of the problems I had with the redos, the first movie of the redo, because they focused on those.
Oh yeah,
on those scenes, and I was just like, "Holy shit, this movie's boring as fuck."
There's a scene, I haven't gotten to it, but there is a scene later on in the show which has Rey and Asuka in an elevator, not speaking to each other or moving or doing anything for 45 seconds with nothing but the sound of just like elevator moving.
Yeah.
It's like, anyway, I could talk about this for far too long, but we have other things to talk about for far too long.
All right.
So let's start with our weekly helping of what dumb thing did a CEO do this week, John?
Probably open their mouth.
Yeah. It's like I almost don't know if the CEOs of the video game industry understand how bad they've fucked this up.
No, they don't understand because they think we're all fucking idiots.
I think so too.
And they think we will eat up whatever the fuck they say, and they're half right.
Yes, that is true.
Because depending on the level of stupidity of the thing they say, we'll just accept it and move on. But also, if it gets too stupid, we'll go, what the fuck?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, well, the thing is that I feel like they fucked it up with Battlefront 2, right? Battlefront 2 was the breaking point. And then they haven't really laid off. Like, normally I feel like what happens is you fuck up as hard as Battlefront 2, and then you lay off for a little while and let everybody kind of get back to normal. Then you slowly ramp the fuckery back up again, right?
Yeah.
But they haven't, and I think it's because loot boxes and microtransactions and stuff.
No, not loot boxes. Surprise mechanics.
Surprise mechanics! Surprise!
They're fun.
Jim Sterling has a new character called the Surprise Mechanic that just is a welding mask with googly eyes, and he just runs in and says surprise and bashes on watermelons.
So it's Gallagher.
Sort of. But I feel like, yeah, there's just too much money, and so they're dead set on barreling straight forward.
I will say, it's just crazy to me because, like, everybody else, Fortnite, everybody is like, okay, let's see what else we can do. This is obviously becoming a hot button topic. You know, maybe we're not on the right side of this. And then EA is like, nah, motherfuckers, double down.
Last week, it's funny because last week I was thinking about it and I was like, you know what I miss, John? DLC. Like when it was just a game that then had 3 pieces of DLC, right? Like with a season pass, and maybe the first DLC sucked. It was just about like a challenge map or something, but then the second 2 were really good. And at the end of the day, we bought the DLC and we were just like, oh, well, that was enjoyable. Instead of just a continual reaching their hand in your pocket every fucking day. Anyway, the latest person reaching their hand in your pocket every day. Actually, you know what, John? You talked about EA. Let's start with EA.
All right.
Because we had our good friend Andrew Wilson.
Hey, Andrew.
Robot Man, who did an interview with GameDaily.biz, where he talked about microtransactions. One of his quotes: whether it's direct purchase or the mystery box style that's become commonly referred to as loot boxes, it's not surprise mechanics, it's mystery boxes.
They can't even decide what they're called.
EA was who was talking last week about the surprise mechanics, and now Andrew Wilson's talking about mystery boxes. Anyway, whether it's direct purchase or this mystery box style that's become commonly referred to as loot boxes, we really think about 4 key vectors: value, fairness, choice, and fun. We want to feel like we got a good deal. We've got some live service businesses that are microtransaction fueled, that has some of the highest sentiment and highest engagement in the industry. So it's actually possible to do this right. What I don't think that Andrew understands when he says that is that EA has basically like shoved microtransactions into games that were already wildly popular. And so, like, if FIFA had started its life always having horribly invasive microtransactions, it may not be as popular as it is today. But the fact is that you took a franchise that was guaranteed. I mean, you know, let's all be honest here. I'm not a big sports game fan. You're not a big sports game fan. I'm sure plenty of people listening aren't big sports game fans.
FIFA's huge.
FIFA and Madden are titanic. There are people out there who will buy a console and they will just buy Madden when it comes out every year. They will buy the shit out of Madden every year.
Same with FIFA.
Same with FIFA. Yeah. These are huge franchises. So, what Wilson over here doesn't really seem to understand is that, like, you're the only game in town, brah. Like, it's not like if I want to play football, if I want to play a Major League Football game, but not Madden, well, that's not a thing, right? Like, I think there's some college.
No.
There's not even college football game?
No, that was also EA as well, and they shut those down.
Oh, right, because of all the likeness rights with, the NCAA
Funny enough,
students.
The last college football game was for the Xbox 360 and the PS3, and used copies of those games can go up to $130.
There you go. There you go.
Because they're hard to find.
I paid less than that for PS2 J horror games that aren't in print anymore.
Yeah.
So these things are huge, and the idea of just like, well, I think we got a good thing, and it's like, no, you've got a captive audience is what you've got. Like if somebody else could make a FIFA game or even a knockoff FIFA game. I mean, hell, who's the only person is what does 2K
PES,
makes. Oh yes, PES Soccer,
and
then
is Konami, right?
2K, I believe so. 2K makes a basketball game, right? They have a
2K Sports has a basketball game.
It's a basketball game, so
they do NBA 2K. Yeah.
So, but all 2K is shitty too. So like, it's not like there's an option. There's a third option for anybody that wants to do this.
And then the only baseball game is MLB The Show, and that's PlayStation exclusive.
Sony, yeah. Further, there was a quote for him saying, we're going to work harder on surfacing tools so that parents can actually feel more in control of the lives of their children. The reality is that these tools exist on the PlayStation, Xbox, and Origin and other platforms today. They really do. What we're going to try to do is actually try to surface that even more in our games, in the language in our games, in the communication around our games, actually use our games to better surface some of the tools so that parents have better control over the digital lives of their children. This is another one of my buttons. I hate that the loot box bill that Hawley, I think, guy that Senator Hawley is doing is it's all about the children. And it's like there are tools. There are totally tools to keep this from happening. Yeah. It's just that parents are lazy and they don't want to fuck with it, or they don't understand it, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
They don't want every time little Timmy wants to buy a loot box for them to have to put in the code. Or so they just tell them the code, or they just don't ever turn it on.
Or it's just stored on the console.
Right. So a lot of this stuff, I get to the point where it's like, well, won't you think about the children? I'm like, yes, the parents should be thinking about their children. I mean, it shouldn't just be... Anyway, it's such a mess. It's such a goddamn mess. That same guy, that Holly guy, also did that... what was that, like Facebook, Twitter? He wants to revoke there's like a statute that means that you can't be prosecuted. It's like Article 30 or something of the Federal Communications Act that says that, like, if I put up a service like Facebook and then you write, "I'm going to kill you, Jeff," on Facebook, that Facebook can't be sued because you're threatening me on their platform because they're just a platform.
Yeah.
And he wants to basically revoke that because of the way that social media has been banning people or shadow banning people, and they say that if you start banning people, then you're a publisher, you're not a platform. Anyway, blah, 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 blah. I talked about 2K briefly. Let's talk about Strauss Zelnick, because speaking of politics, speech, and loot boxes, last week, Strauss Zelnick, in an interview with Business Insider, talking about the legislation to ban loot boxes, Senator Hawley put up, he said, quote, "That's just not going to happen. That would be a horrible law in a country that has the First Amendment." So you heard it here, John. Loot boxes are free speech.
No.
They're free speech, John. Strauss Zelnick said it.
No. That's not speech.
Yeah. I mean, if that's the case, then aren't slot machines free speech? And they should be allowed everywhere? I mean... If that's the case, then shouldn't... I mean, I don't know. It's exhausting with these motherfuckers.
I agree.
It's exhausting with these motherfuckers. I do not agree that loot boxes are free speech. And I also kind of hate the thing these days on the internet where everybody just treats the words free speech like it's some kind of like just it's like a catch-all, like just you can use it to excuse anything that you want. Well, free speech. It's like, well, that isn't what that means. That's not what that means. Also, free speech generally applies to people, not corporations.
But corporations are people.
Well, there's a let's not go down that road. Let's not go down that road.
I was saying that sarcastically. But,
let's not go down that road. You don't, guys. You don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. Anyway, well, we switched from this exhausting topic to a real bummer. So I'm sure that most folks already know this, but there's a very popular Twitch streamer, YouTuber. God damn it. There we go. My fucking browser doesn't work. Desmond Etika Amofa, who was a guy that did a lot of reaction videos. I don't watch a lot of Let's Players that are not me.
I don't really watch them either much myself.
But I did watch somebody. There was the first time that he ran across the Persona 5 battle music and was just like entranced by it. He was just like, damn, this is fucking hot. He was just like, stopped playing the game to kind of like dance along and groove out to it. It was very charming. So I don't know that we have all the stuff going on here. Apparently during some of his streams, he had indicated some tendencies towards self-harm to the point where they had even had police come out and kind of do what do they call that when they come out to your house to check on you when people are afraid you're going to hurt yourself?
Wellness check,
yeah. And talk to him. And so then a few days back, he went missing. And it seems like from the details of this story that there were signs of an actual like break-in in his apartment. Like there was stuff that was all kind of ruffled up and rumbled around. Front door was open, monitor was gone, stuff like that. And unfortunately, the NYPD, it was from New York, the NYPD found him in the river, and he's dead. So that's sad. Sucks. That sucks real bad. Now, whether
I know he was really popular. I never watched any of his stuff, but I know he was really popular.
Yeah. Whether this was I mean, I think that most people are assuming that he probably took his own life. But if there was something nefarious, obviously we want those people to be caught. But on the other case, I mean, I like to say this as much as humanly possible. We live in rough times.
Yeah.
A lot of times we can feel very isolated with. I mean, I know that in my life, most of my human contact comes from seeing you guys, from seeing like you and Michael and Amanda and Matt and stuff when I do Let's Plays with you. Like if I had a regular, I'm single now and stuff, and sometimes I feel like we can get real isolated. You can feel you're really alone. I'm not going to sit here and say that there haven't been times that dark thoughts have gone through my head, but like just reach out to people, try to talk to other people, try not to spend too much time all by yourself. And, if you need to call one of the prevention lines, talk to somebody there.
Yeah, it's
somebody gives a shit.
The big thing is, talk to a friend. If you don't have a friend to talk to, call like you said, one of those help
suicide prevention hotline.
See a psychiatrist, see a psychologist.
Yes.
Those are two different things.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not. There is someone that is there to listen and who wants to listen and who,
Yeah. Your life affects somebody. Somebody gives a shit, right? Somebody gives a shit. It may not always be the clearest thing, but somebody gives a shit.
Yeah, and I will say, if it's a thing where like you're like, oh, I don't want to burden my friends or my family with my own shit. Seriously, seek out like a psychologist or a psychiatrist, because you would be surprised how almost good it feels to talk about this stuff with someone who's listening to you. Mm-hmm. They're not judging you. They're not, they have no preconceived notion of who you are beforehand, and they're just listening to you, and they're, maybe they ask questions to kind of gauge the reasons why you think things, and then maybe they just let you talk, and and sometimes they may be able to say things to help you figure things out yourself. Sometimes they may be able to say things that tell you, hey, this is what you need to do to fix this, or this is not going to fix this, but it might help,
right?
Or maybe we need to do this, or that. Sometimes just talking to somebody who is, you're paying them to listen to you talk to them, sometimes that actually is more helpful than you realize.
I think it's vitally important to talk to other people. As somebody who spends a lot of time up in their own head, I think it's vitally important to let other people into your life at least enough to tell you, to help you see what things are like from an outsider perspective. It's very easy to get all up in your own head and then just get into a big spiral of catastrophizing and letting stuff build up. So yes, I 100% agree, John. Go talk to somebody, and it kind of doesn't really matter who. Just somebody who will listen. Start there, and then take it from there. But yeah, somebody gives a shit, even if it's you may not know it. I give a shit. If you're listening to this and you're considering that, or you get in a bad place, I give a shit whether you're alive or not. Like I do. So go find somebody, go get the thing, talk to somebody, and just, don't do anything severe. So, all right, let's go back to yelling about video games now. We got the heavy stuff, heavy parts out of the way. We have a lot of Twitch news to talk about this week, John.
Okay.
So Twitch has debuted a new feature where you can basically have a subscriber-only stream. So Twitch subscribers, it's like the way that it works is when you subscribe to somebody on Twitch, they get a certain amount of money, I believe, depending on how long you subscribe.
The channel gets a percentage of something.
Yes.
And then also you as a viewer, sometimes depending on what the Twitch channel does, you may get
like emotes
like specially created emotes, or there's some other stuff. I don't know the full mechanics of it. I haven't looked at it.
So apparently Twitch is going to start letting you do streams that only people who are subscribers, and you can even set how long it is. The replays won't be available to people who aren't subscribers. So the kind of
and I know you can actually set it so that replays are only available to subscribers.
Oh, okay.
So that like you can do like your normal streams. If you're watching it live, you get to see it without having to be a subscriber. But if you want to watch the
interesting,
if you want to watch the previous streams on Twitch, you got to be a subscriber. Like I know. The wrestling promotion that I went to this past Sunday, they were the first wrestling promotion to ever partner up on Twitch.
Oh.
And that's how they do it. If you subscribe to them, you get access to all of their previous streams.
Okay.
Otherwise, you can just watch it live when it happens.
Interesting.
Plus, I also think you get some emotes, some various emotes.
This confused the fuck out of me this week because I got an email from Twitch, and then I got a second email from Twitch. So apparently you can't actually do this until you are, I believe you have to be at least a partner, right? Or what's the lowest level? Is that just there's like affiliate, right?
Yeah, I think it's affiliate.
And you have to stream on 90 unique days without violating their terms of service.
Okay.
So when I looked at it, I was like, oh, cool. I'll be eligible to do this sometime in the late part of next year, I guess, because as somebody who only streams once a week, like 90 is, there's 52 weeks in a year. Once a week, 52 weeks, you do the math, you could see. But this is interesting, though. I think it's interesting to see. I feel like Twitch has always had a very light touch when it comes to like monetization. I feel this is really interesting. I'm going to be interested to see whether this works out, in their favor or not, because there is, I don't know. It's cool. It's big. But like I said, we do have a lot of Twitch news this week. I'm just going to squeeze this one back in here. After his bathroom shenanigans, Dr. Disrespect apparently got reinstated.
Yeah, I mean, it was always a matter of time. It was never going to be a permanent ban because Twitch he makes them money.
He makes some money. Yeah.
So it was never going to be a permanent ban, and he even knew that. He even very clearly didn't think it was a very serious thing. Also, not the first time he's had his Twitch account banned and then unbanned.
Sure.
Not the second or third time either.
I can't wait to see how the latest person who is on Twitch gets his account banned, and that person is Bernie Sanders. So apparently Bernie Sanders has a Twitch account now. Don't know why. Don't know what he's going to do on it.
He's got to get in with them young children.
He's just gonna get on there
and tell them about socialism.
Yep, just gonna yap and yipping yap and yappity yap yap. Cool? Question mark? Okay, so here's the thing. That
was my Bernie Sanders impression, by the way.
It was pretty good. It was a pretty good Bernie Sanders impression. I do not want to watch Bernie Sanders' Twitch channel unless it's actually Bernie Sanders playing video games. Like, if it's Bernie Sanders playing Fortnite, then I will definitely watch it. But if it's just Bernie Sanders, like, hanging out and talking to a camera, I don't want to watch that. I do want to watch Bernie Sanders play Dark Souls. I would subscribe to his subscriber-only Dark Souls this weekend. I'm marathoning. It's just Bernie Sanders with the chair, those like gamer chairs that go up real high that people use on Twitch for the green screen, right? He's just playing Dark Souls, doing a charity stream for his campaign where he's just going to play all the way through Dark Souls. That would be a weird thing if it turns out that Bernie Sanders was like a fucking pro MLB pro
he just
gamer.
Looks at the camera and goes, "Get good, noob."
That's right. Yeah, obviously that's not what it's going to be. It's going to just be him.
It's probably going to be his any type of like rallies he does and like interviews he does or clips of interviews he does. It's not going to be. Yeah,
I want Bernie Sanders to play video games so bad. Who of all of the people in politics, whose Twitch channel do you want more than anybody, John? I don't know if you care. I don't know if you do politics all that much, but
AOC?
AOC? Yeah. I kind of almost want Trump to have a Let's Play channel.
No.
I kind of want it to be a Let's Play channel and then him to be really bad at video games just so that I can be even more not a fan. But maybe just like Mitch McConnell.
Ted Cruz. For the last time, I'm not the Zodiac killer. Please stop saying that.
Well, then why are you playing murdered soul suspect, Ted? Why are you playing what's that? God, what's the game where all the kids get killed? Until Dawn.
Yeah.
Why are you playing Until Dawn, Ted? Why are you playing Resident Evil? I want to live in a world where, in order to become president, you also have to have a Let's Play channel. It's like the only way to get the popularity.
You know what comic book you'd probably really like?
What's
Not
that?
to bring comics into this, but there's a comic called The Prez, which is it's based on an old comic, but they redid it and modernized it, and it's a miniseries. I think it's out in trade now, but it's essentially about a 13 or 16-year-old girl who goes internet viral and gets voted to become president.
Okay.
In a world that's like totally fucked.
Okay.
And it's actually kind of it's really good. And like that's part of it, like the whole, internet market, like literally voting is all based on internet viralness and things like that. So like the whole system is fucking garbage.
Yeah. Cool. Sounds good to me.
It's really good. It's a really good book, and I really highly recommend. It's a DC book as well.
Okay.
So
wasn't that a character that was like one of those Alan Moore, like Constantine or Swamp Thing? There was like a 1970s hippie guy who was really popular, and then he got shot in like a Swamp Thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's all part. I mean, it's all around that same time from the 70s.
Okay. All right. Well, speaking of politics and giant companies, last week we also had a thing where Nintendo and Sony and Microsoft all teamed up to essentially have their lawyers draft a letter to the president asking him to essentially create a loophole in the current tariff trade war with China for the consumer electronics that they are either building in China or getting parts from China or things like that. interesting to me.
Yeah.
For anybody who doesn't know,
this tariff thing is gonna.
It's such a.
It's gonna fuck over a lot of companies.
It's so weird because the thing is that, like, I've actually listened to some of the reasons to go to a trade war with China, like the idea that when an American company moves to China requires them to like sign a lot of their intellectual property over to the company in China that is doing the work for them, who then immediately takes that and tries to undercut them by setting up their own facility to try to manufacture the same thing now that they know how to do it. And I'm like, well, that's shitty. I don't like that, but yeah, we're doing this thing, Trump likes tariffs. He likes the idea of tariffs. And this could very much affect. This could really okay. And let me explain the reason. Here's the reason: consoles are generally sold like at cost or sometimes at a loss to whoever the company is. Like a lot of times, the second or third generation of a console will start to actually make the company a little bit of money. But like most of the first gens of these consoles, they're selling them at a loss. They sell them at a loss so that you'll buy games because the games make more money than
printers.
the consoles.
It's like printers in the computer industry.
Right.
When you're buying a printer, the company is selling to you at a loss because they know you're going to buy printer ink.
Right.
And then they sell you that printer ink at a premium price.
Right. But they're considering that's their business model for these consoles, is selling them either at a very small amount of profit or even at a loss. Well, it means that if you get a bunch of tariffs that are being put on stuff manufactured overseas, then, I mean, the console manufacturers really have no choice but to jack up the price.
Yeah. And not just console manufacturers. This also applies to like tabletop RPGs. Like a lot of your tabletop RPGs, they're like miniatures and board games and things like that. A lot of those are manufactured in China.
Right.
And it's the same thing. Like a lot of those are going to get their prices raised, and it affects a lot of stuff. It's crazy.
It really does. So I'm not making a case here. I'm not telling you that you should vote for or what you should do. I do think that if Bernie Sanders does a Dark Souls stream, you should watch it. But like, there's a good possibility, especially if he's reelected, and especially if this goes on for longer, we're going to be in the middle of the next gen console launch while this aggressive trade war with one of our primary or one of the countries that tends to manufacture a lot of the electronic goods that we have is going on. And so, if Microsoft puts out the Scarlet and it's $600 and just like
$699,
and just shrug your shoulders and go like, this isn't us. Like the day these tariffs go away, we drop the price by $200. It's just, you can't, like, when they're already making no money, they can't sell every console like
at double the loss.
At double the loss, right? There has to be some limit as to how much of a ball tap they can take economically when they do this sort of stuff. So, look into it yourself. I try to keep Rage Select relatively politics free. I know we've had a lot of politics this time, but like, look into it for yourself. You go look into it. You look into it and make your own decision. I'm just saying that. I hope that they at least get that exemption, or I don't know. We'll see what happens. Now, John, I told you that we had 2 like international tariff stories.
Yeah.
We're not quite done yet. Apparently League of Legends is banned in both Iran and Syria now.
Oh, okay.
So we have there are economic sanctions regulations going on between the United States and Iran and Syria. As you may know, I'm going to try to be really fast and easy about this. Iran had their nuclear deal. Trump pulled out of the nuclear deal because of the most common thing is Mike Pompeo and the mustache guy. God, I cannot remember his name. This is why I don't run a politics podcast, because I can't be saying mustache guy on a politics podcast.
Because that could describe like 12 people.
Right. So he pulled out of that, but then like Iran has been there's been a lot of tension between the U.S. and Iran recently. There's been attacks on oil tankers, none that are U.S., but then last week there was a drone that was shot down over Iran. It was on like $160 million drone, the United States drone that was shot down over Iran. And then there was actually potentially going to be like a bombing from the United States in retaliation, and then Trump decided to call it off. Go read it. Go read it somewhere where there's a guy who doesn't say mustache guy. In any case, one of the things that's happened here is that League of Legends is now no longer available for players in Iran or Syria. Syria being a kind of a partner with Iran, kind of a similar regime-y type of thing. But apparently when you log in, you get a note that says, due to U.S. laws and regulations, players in your country cannot access League of Legends at this time. Such restrictions are subject to change by the U.S. government. So if and when that happens, we look forward to having you back on the Rift. So apparently, I mean, this is kind of the same thing as like an economic sanction, right? Is like League of Legends is an export, I guess.
Yes.
And so you're doing that. So things are weird. Very weird. Speaking of weird, apparently the latest Steam summer sale is real weird, John.
Yeah.
That like there's this so the latest Steam is having their summer sale, and they have these little event games, that you'll do during the summer sale where you buy a little bit of this, and then it helps raise this meter, and then a thing, blah, 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 blah. They've done a lot of different stuff before. This year, apparently, they've done a thing that's so fucking convoluted that very few people can actually figure it out, where there's like races that are happening between 5 different teams, and then whatever team wins that day, a certain number of people will get the game that is at the top of their Steam wish list, like a very small number of people.
But it wasn't worded that way originally.
Right. Like there was some indie developers that were saying that people
No. The original wording was you'll get a game from your wish list.
Oh.
And so people went, oh, well then if I need to make sure, because the game will be chosen random, I need to make sure that only the highest cost games that I want are on my wish list, so they would remove all the the lower priced indie games.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is games on a wish list actually affects metrics and analytics for the games on Steam. So if a lot of people have a very specific game on their wish list, even if they're not buying it, if they have it, it actually helps their game get seen on Steam. And because people just started removing everything in mass, it actually fucked over a lot of independent people.
Yeah. Also, apparently just the whole if you play a game, then you get a certain number of points towards one of these races, but then if you buy games off the summer sale, then it's like a multiplier for your points that are going for your team.
Yeah.
But then somebody in this article, I'm reading an article of Kotaku, where they're talking about so I had this and then I spent $100, and I was like, if I did the math, that means I should have gotten 90,000 points, but I got 5,000 points, and then there was So anyway, Steam has tried to walk this back a little bit.
Yeah, Steam basically, the first thing they say is first of all, stop removing things from your wish list.
Right. It's whatever's at the top of your wish list.
Yeah, so if there's a specific game you want, move it to the top. That's the one you'll get for free.
Yep. And then apparently they're kind of trying to simplify the rules a little bit for whatever this is. It's kind of interesting to me, though, that Steam is big enough that the shenanigans of their summer sale are enough to be a news story.
Yeah.
They fucked up their dumb mini game in a way that is screwing indie developers, because
they fucked up their indie game in a way that it's actually messing up how Steam displays what games to suggest to people.
I hate when these sales happen, John, because I have to scroll through 8 pages of deals to get to the new releases on Steam, because there's still no way for me to put new releases at the top page of Steam, which is one of the reasons why I'm still not real mad at the Epic Game Store, because Steam is fucked, and I hate it. It's fucked.
All right.
Anyway, so yeah, if you are deciding that you want to play this game, apparently it's a little better now.
Yeah. Apparently they did, if you had already played the game, the mini game or whatever it is a little bit, they actually awarded everyone who was already participating some extra points for the misunderstanding.
Huzzah! Huzzah?
I don't know.
All right. Speaking of things that are making gamers mad, It's been
That could be anything, Jeff.
8 months. That's my universal segue. Speaking of things that make the internet go grrr, let's talk about Call of Duty Black Ops 4. So it's been, 9 months to 10 months since Black Ops 4 came out. And guess what's in Black Ops now, John? What's in Blackout specifically? Little pay to win.
Oh,
pay to win in there, yeah. So apparently, okay, listen, I'm going to read this to you. I'm going to read this feature thing to you. This is one of the problems that I have reporting on things like Call of Duty is they name everything in the game like a specific thing. And so when you read it, this is what it sounds like. Blackjack Stashes. Each player will be able to unlock one of Blackjack Stashes per game, which contains all the black market weapons in your inventory. For instance, if you've earned the Vendetta and the Contraband stream, then it will be available for you to grab during a Blackout match in one of Blackjack Stashes.
I have no idea what any of that is.
So there were loot boxes in Blackout, and there were weapons that you would specifically get from loot boxes, like not from the map. And apparently now in their Battle Royale map, there are going to be specific things, specific boxes that will only contain what you have unlocked out of the loot boxes. So like if you have a gun, you can get that powerful gun. And apparently the loot boxes have all the best guns, right? But then like say you kill somebody with that gun, you can't pick it up unless you also have opened enough loot boxes to get that gun out of the loot boxes.
That's weird.
It's very strange. It's one of these like they're just so desperate flailing where it's like, oh well, this is just going to make your game worse, right? And your player base isn't going to like it. So I don't know what the fuck you think you're doing. Like it's not like they're not going to notice that you did this.
Yeah, I also feel like this week Call of Duty 4 has been kind of been getting raked over the coals. I mean, what was it? Schreier did another one of his in-depth behind-the-scene crunch articles on Call of Duty 4, Black Ops 4,
yeah.
Yeah, about the fact that it was supposed to have a story mode and that it got canned after they did the same thing, almost did the same thing to the last video, Black Ops 3 story mode or whatever. Like, it got considerably changed, and they were told that they weren't going to do that again. And like they talked about how all of their QA testers who are, because they're temp employees, they get treated like second-class citizens.
Sure.
And, they're barely making enough money to live, like how most of them actually have to have multiple jobs, and they're treated like garbage. And it's again, one of the things I got to say about Schreier over at Kotaku. The man is doing fucking journalist. The man and the entire staff of Kotaku who help him make these, because he's very quick to point out he is not the only one getting this information. He's just the one compiling the final article.
Right.
But everyone over at Kotaku who's part of that, they are just doing these like behind the scenes, in depth like articles that are just kind of like showing some stuff that some of us were all like not very well kept secrets in the industry, but actually like pointing out how bad they've gotten.
Yep.
And it's kind of nice.
Yeah, it is. I agree. I think that anything that brings this stuff up and keeps it in people's minds is good because
it needs to change.
It does need to change. The problem is just that it's hard to change. But
yeah. I think one of the things they said is that there's another Call of Duty game that got announced that they're working on, that Treyarch or whatever is working on in conjunction with like two of the other studios, and the 90% of the contractor staff didn't find out about it until they read about the Kotaku article announcing it.
Yeah, so in any case, let's just say that. Take this, right? Take what John just said, and then maybe think about not pre-ordering Call of Duty, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Modern Warfare, right? The next one's Modern Warfare, right? They're rebooting Modern Warfare. So, and I'm not even saying don't buy it. I'm saying maybe don't pre-order it. Maybe wait for it to come out, and then wait a week and see if they just surprisingly put loot boxes in a week after launch, because they fucking love to do that, right? There's no way to really defend yourself against what happened here. I mean, it's been like 10 months, right?
Yeah.
But it should also maybe be noted that the last one, two, at least World War II and Black Ops 4 both had loot boxes in them. there's going to be loot boxes in the next one, y'all. Like, whether it's now or later or sometime or whatever, it's going to have loot boxes.
Yeah.
There's going to be loot boxes in the next Call of Duty game. Like, they just don't, they make too much money off the loot boxes. That's the dirty little secret of everything that we've been talking about, right? All the bad press in the world doesn't matter because gamers still buy the game, and some people, enough people, spend money on those loot boxes to make the thing profitable.
Yeah.
Like, if you lose 10% of your market share, which is a huge thing for a company, right? If 10% fewer people this year rather than last year buy the next Call of Duty game, however, your microtransactions from the last Call of Duty game made your profits 200%. Like, they added a whole 100% to your profits. Well, fuck, man, you can afford to lose 50% of your player base. As long as the ones that are left are the ones spending the loot boxes, you'll still be breaking even. And everybody knows that Call of Duty makes fucking hella cash regardless. So, again, that's the dirty little secret here is I can complain about it all day long, but as long as they're just like raking in the money, then, I mean, you know, who gives a shit who gives a shit how mad you or me or anybody is?
No, I agree.
So, speaking of being mad at stuff, people are mad at that Bloodstain Switch version.
Oh, yeah. I heard about this.
Because apparently it runs like total and complete shit, and it looks kind of bad, and it crashes.
Yeah.
I saw one report of somebody where the game crashed, and then it required them to re-download the whole game because it said that the install file was corrupted.
Yeah.
Basically just...
And there's been some weird conspiracy theory that the reason the Switch version was delayed a week was to prevent bad reviews
right
for the launch of the game.
See, what's weird is I don't even know if I would consider that to be like a conspiracy theory. It seems like the sort of thing that might actually happen, but I don't know. I'm speaking to somebody who really likes Bloodstain. The good news, though, if this is the version that you're playing, is that apparently they have decided to shift all of their ongoing QA, update, bug fix stuff to try to get the Switch version to work. Yeah. So this is one of those things where if you haven't bought Bloodstain and you maybe want it for the Switch, I would definitely say, just as a PSA, wait. Yeah, wait. Read some articles. Give it a few weeks. See what happens. Maybe it'll get fixed. If it doesn't, then buy it on a different console. But if it does, cool. All right, we're getting a little bit late here. I did have this article about details on the Marvel game, on the Avengers game. It talked about, like, there's a campaign and you can play it, but it's a way to get you into the multiplayer and blah, blah, blah. And it just did nothing to really reinforce. I think it was supposed to be damage control where they were like, no, there's totally a single-player campaign and you could totally play it by yourself if that's what you want. And it's like, yeah, but whenever anybody uses the, like, if that's what you want, when they're talking about a game that has multiplayer, my feet get itchy. Yeah. Because that's like code speak for, like, yeah, there's a single player. It sucks, but you can play it. I mean, you can play a shitty game. You can play it. Anyway, let's talk about trailers. I'm so happy, John. There is a fighting game in development for One Punch Man, but how it will work, John has questions.
Yeah, no, I'm sitting my so, like, if you're playing as Saitama, I mean, do you only have one punch to win the match, and if you don't win, is that the end of the match? Does he have more than one punch, because that would kind of defeat the purpose? Is it a thing where no one can choose Saitama, and he's actually like the end boss villain of every character's story mode?
To defeat him without getting punched.
Yeah. Or is it, what's going on here? Because in this trailer, there's actually scenes where characters are attacking him. He's not even blocking. He's just standing there taking the damage.
Yep.
And it's like nothing's happening. So it's like, but everyone else is fighting everyone else, and there's like, battle stuff going on.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, what? So, because if you play as Saitama and you beat everyone with one punch, how is that fun?
So, just quickly, for those of you who don't know, it just occurred to me that there might be somebody listening to this like, what the fuck? One Punch Man is a comedy anime about a superhero who defeats every enemy with one punch. He's so strong, and also nothing hurts him. He's kind of just invincible.
He's also kind of an idiot.
And he's kind of weird and stupid. So yeah, the idea of making now that it's in a universe full of superheroes.
Yeah.
So like his friend is Genos, and then there's Sonic. What's the guy's name? Spirit Sonic or Supersonic, whatever.
Yeah,
the Ninja. There's Moomin Rider. There's what's her Tornado's sister, who's in season 2. You know, we're seeing that there are other characters in here who do look like normal fighting game characters. It's just that also in this trailer, Saitama is basically just standing there, not getting hit or doing anything. There's one scene where we see a bunch of punches coming from him, like a flurry of punches.
Yeah,
but that's it. This apparently is going to be a 3-on-3 fighting game. Also, though, John, I have to tell you that Moomin Rider is my favorite.
Oh, yeah. No, he's great.
And the fact that he's in this game, and the fact that in the footage we actually see him just like throw his bike at someone, because for anybody who doesn't know, Moomin Rider is a character in One Punch Man who has no business being a superhero. He's just a guy on a bike.
Yeah, that's actually his superpowers. He's a guy on a bicycle.
Yep.
Not a motorcycle, bicycle.
Yep.
He is a bicyclist.
Yep.
His power is that he can cycle really good.
And he gets beat up a lot.
Yeah, he does.
He gets beat up a lot. But he's got, like, he never says die. He's got a heart of gold. He knows that he's not super powerful. Like, he tries to just do stuff to help other people. He's such a great character. I always said that I wanted Moomin Rider to be in Avengers, and that the Infinity War where they're all attacking Thanos, and then at the very end it's just like a bike comes from off screen and hits Thanos in the face. He just flips Moomin Rider over to the other side of the world. That's kind of the characters. Anyway, I'm excited in some ways. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of these arena fighters, but I do like One Punch Man an awful lot.
Yeah.
And a lot of in my experience, a lot of these arena fighters, it's how much do you like the characters that the thing is based on.
Yeah.
Like, I liked the My Hero Academia one. I don't like the Naruto, however you say it, or like Bleach ones or whatever.
Or One Piece.
Or One Piece, right? Because I'm just not into those shows. There's a Kill la Kill one's coming out like at the end of the month or something.
Yeah, in a few months.
Anyway, this is going to be PS4, Xbox One, PC? Yeah, PC.
Yeah.
We also got a full 26-minute the trailer of the Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order gameplay demo, like the full one that they showed.
Yeah, the one they showed behind the scenes.
Yeah,
which was a lot better than the one that they showed people publicly during E3.
Absolutely. If you are on the fence about this game, I think you should go watch this. You know, it's got, like, there's a part we were just watching where the main character takes two stormtroopers driving an AT-AT and like knocks their heads together, and it knocks them out, and it's like, what are the helmets for if you just smash the helmets together and then they just immediately go unconscious? Anyway, there's a lot of stuff in here. Part of it is actually the trailer, but there's a lot of more stuff in here that is more like, there's a whole sequence of him driving the AT-AT and shooting other stuff. There's kind of him, like, I was telling John, in the trailer, like in the E3 trailer, he talks to Saw Gerrera, and then he like runs and just starts doing the mission. Whereas here, it's like, in order for him to get to the mission or to get to that cutscene, he has to do a little side jaunt. He has to look at his map, figure out where to get an upgrade for his buddy droid.
They did a better job of showing the Metroidvania aspect of how you could approach this in different ways, as opposed to the one that the slice that they showed to everyone at E3, which was the most linear fucking thing in the entire world. Yeah.
So if you're on the fence, I'm already kind of, in spite of myself, in spite of how many times I've been burned by Star Wars over the years, I'm still kind of excited about this. I
feel like every time I see footage, I get excited, but then I read an interview and red flags start going up again.
You gotta stop reading them interviews, John. You gotta take your ignorance and protect it from the world.
Because again, it's just, my problem is like they talk about like things that should be figured out by now, and they're like, yeah, well, we haven't actually worked out how that's going to work in this game, and it's like, wait, what?
Well, I don't know. I mean, okay, so we've talked about this a few times, and I've been thinking about that particular statement, and some of it is like, I don't know if they're overstating it, but it's also like the people making this game are game developers who've made a lot of games, and if they're making it on something like Unreal, which this is definitely not Frostbite, right?
Yeah.
Then it's possible they have enough experience to just be like, well, we haven't figured out how we're going to do you were talking about like outfits yet, like whether it's the UI, how do you pick them up and stuff. But it's the sort of thing where it's just like, well, I was thinking about it this weekend. This is how we're going to do it, and it's Unreal. So there are tools in there to just be like,
yeah,
blip,
no,
blip, blip,
I know, and
know.
it's just one of those things where it's just like. There are certain things that I feel like anytime I've ever heard a developer say, well, we haven't figured out how that's going to work yet, it's usually in relation to a game that's like more than a year away.
Right.
This game is months away.
Okay.
Like literal months. Like you can count how many months away on one hand at this point. And it's like to hear them say that they haven't figured it out yet means either they're lying and they have figured it out and they're just being coy, or, and that's fine if they are. Or it means that they haven't figured it out, and there's going to be a shitload of crunch.
Right. Yes, which
is bad, and then most likely either the game's going to come out and be shit, or the game's going to get pushed back and not actually come out on its release date that they promised on.
I agree that all those things could happen. On the other hand, my response is that I liked Titanfall 2 and I liked Apex. And Respawn seems to kind of have their shit together more than a lot of EA does.
I give you that.
So what I'm saying is that all that is totally legit. But if anybody could get to the end of that sprint, I feel like Respawn could. Okay. I don't know that I would trust DICE. Who the fuck?
Oh God, no! I wouldn't trust DICE with that shit.
Anyway, we'll see. We'll see whether it comes out or
DICE
not.
could actually say, oh, we haven't figured that out yet for the next Battlefield 5 that hasn't even been announced, and I would still be worried that game's going to be fucked up.
Yeah. Speaking of Respawn, Apex Legends Season 2 has a trailer with the giant dinosaur in it.
Leviathan!
Yep. Don't know what it's going to be. I didn't have time to really look into everything that was going on.
Good trailer, though.
I like the trailer, yeah. The characters all have kind of some nice personality. It also... Correct me if I'm wrong, but like it's this style in this trailer is different than what it looks like in the actual game, right?
Never actually played the game, so I don't know.
I think the game is a little bit less cartoony. Like this is a little bit more like cell shaded.
Yeah, it definitely looks cell shaded. Cell shaded. It's hard to say,
but I think it looks cool. It looks cool. Cool looking game, or cool looking expansion. I've had a lot of single player stuff to play recently. I haven't had a chance to get back into anything, but let's see. We also had, I'm going to cut some of these. There was a trailer for Journey to a Savage Planet that it didn't tell us a whole lot. Looked okay.
Yeah.
Looked all right. Hitman 2 bank trailer. By this point, the bank is already out. You guys know me. I'm a big fan of Hitman.
You already played this, didn't you?
Yes. Yeah, by the time this comes out,
it's already on Rage Select.
It's on Rage Select. It's still a good trailer, though. It's still
it's a very good trailer. Like I like how like at first I didn't realize what it was doing and how Agent 47 is actually in every scene,
shot.
Every shot, he's somewhere in every shot.
Yeah.
Which I thought that was really clever.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's a good trailer. You should go watch it. As far as I think that if. I've seen some people asking, like, do you think that the season pass is worth it? Because I think the season pass is like $40 or $50, and technically, if you don't like the sniper missions, it's like the DLC maps are 2 sniper mission maps, and then the bank, and then sometime in the fall, there's like going to be a tropical resort map.
Yeah.
So like, if you're not into the remixes of old stuff, and you're not into like the sniper missions, $50 is probably a big ask for 2 levels. Even though I really like that bank level. But me, I'm all in. Bought the hell out of that game.
Yeah, and like I said, someone, I think No Clip, the people, Daniel Dwyer run documentary YouTube channel, is doing said one of their next ones is going to be IO Interactive and the development of Hitman 2.
Nice.
They're going to be releasing, so that's going to be cool.
Yeah, I'm all about that. I'm also all about ActRaiser, which is why Soul Seraph looks interesting, which is a Sega PS4 game coming out this year that is basically ActRaiser, but not ActRaiser, but not the name. Because I think that Enix, back when they were Enix, had the rights to ActRaiser or something.
Okay.
Anyway, this is totally ActRaiser, which I'm a big fan of. Super Nintendo. John said you don't remember it, or you didn't never play it.
I don't think I've ever played ActRaiser.
But just like a 2D action adventure game where you play as the literal incarnation of a god, and then there's a kind of a top-down like angel view building simulation mechanic game as well.
Kind of looks a little tower defense-y.
It's I think it is a little bit because the monster spawners in the map continually spawn monsters, and you have to just kind of keep them away. But it looks good. I mean, I don't know if bringing back ActRaiser sans the title ActRaiser works in 2019, but
Sega's gonna do it.
maybe. We'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, last but not least, let's talk about a few quick things. The next Yakuza game with the new protagonist, who is named Kasuga Ichiban, is going to be, they're going to get some information about it next month.
Yes.
So he's already in the phone game, I believe. There's a big trailer for the phone game that had him in it. It's interesting. It's interesting. You know, it's funny when I played Judgment, I was actually really happy with it because it takes place in like the same Kamurocho map that Yakuza 6 takes place in, but the main character is not a Yakuza.
Yeah.
And he like knows how to use technology, and he's a little bit more schmoozy, but he also doesn't feel like he's invincible in a fight, even though he's very powerful. You know, whereas with Kiryu, it was like, well, nobody's going to hurt Kiryu's just going to kill everybody.
Yeah,
like he's going to beat everybody up.
I've actually, that's one of the big things. Like I haven't played Judgment yet, and I'm probably going to try to play it this weekend, hopefully. But that's one of the things I've heard about Judgment is a lot of people like that it's them. Yes, it's them using some of the same assets and doing some of the same thing, but it's also a much smaller story, which is kind of refreshing.
Yeah, because it just
smaller,
it feels
more personal story, and maybe they can start off the next Yakuza game with that kind of.
I hope so. Because I mean, the thing is that Kiryu Kazama, he just became he's like Kratos, right?
Yeah.
At a certain point where nobody's gonna kill this guy, nobody's gonna stop this guy. Like, it doesn't even make sense why muggers. Haven't you muggers heard over the last 40 years about the guy in the gray suit with the red shirt walking around? Like, just don't fuck with him, man.
Yeah,
he'll tear your face off.
He'll pick up a motorcycle and beat you to death with it.
I like that you can still hit people with a bike in Judgment. Still pick up a bike, hit it. Let's see. That Switch game, Astral Chain, is potentially going to be a trilogy.
Oh, nice.
Depending on how well it sells. So Platinum looks like they're trying to actually get it into a position to make it like a franchise.
Yeah. I mean, everything we saw from E3 looked good.
Yeah.
Like, I'm actually very interested in the game.
A lot of the stuff that I heard about the plot from E3 made it also sound like the sort of thing where, depending on the way the story goes, you totally could have more games in this series, in this franchise. And I'm going to skip this one. So we're going to do two more. All right. Budweiser has applied for the trademark of, quote, the official beer of esports.
Can you trademark something that is not true?
That's gross. Budweiser beer is gross. I drink Lone Star, which is like a couple of steps above Budweiser, but not by all that much. But like, oh my God, seriously, I every town I go to, there's like some craft beer going on in there. There's some national chains of beer that are better. Why the fuck would you ever drink Budweiser?
Because it's sold at every major sporting event and it's cheap. And
but so is Heineken. Like, I guess cheap. That's a good one. But anyway, fuck off, Budweiser. Fuck out of esports. I don't want you here. Nobody wants you here. I speak for the internet. I'm the Lorax. Last but not least, before we take a break, John, I thought you would be excited about the new Overwatch.
I'm very excited.
The Overwatch Lego sets we've got announced. There's a Wrecking Ball.
Yes, and it looks amazing.
With the
I want it.
Little hamster, and then there's Junkrat and Roadhog with a motorcycle.
Yeah,
that is like that's the Junktown.
Yeah, the
map.
Junktown. It's a reference to the Junktown map. But yeah, no, I totally want the Wrecking Ball Lego set. Like, I want it now. It's so adorable. It's so fucking great.
You got all the rest of them. Do you think you'll get the Roadhog one?
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I'm probably gonna get both of those that were just announced. I mean, I have all but two sets that have been released. One of them is the most expensive set, which I can't afford, and then the other one is just one I don't care about because it's Genji and Hanzo.
What's the most expensive one that you can't afford?
It's a giant spaceship.
Oh, the one that has like Winston.
Yeah, it has like Winston, Mercy, Pharah, another version of Reaper, and then the giant fucking spaceship.
Okay.
Like it's like $100 and some odd.
Oh, come on, Lego. How much do these kind of go for?
So the rumor is that the Junkrat and Roadhog one is going to end up being around $20, and that the Wrecking Ball one will probably be about $40.
Okay.
But yeah, it just depends. But I got the giant Bastion, and I got the I got all the others.
Okay.
So
try to collect them all.
I like Legos, and I like Overwatch, and I'm totally happy with it. And now I just need to make sure I have desk space for all of it to be displayed. That Bastion one is fucking badass, by the way.
Yeah,
yeah, because it's fully transformable. Like you can transform it from robot to turret.
Yeah,
and everything. And
I remember that.
It's so cool.
Okay. And with that, we're gonna go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we're going to answer some questions. We might review some things.
You might.
I might review some things. So stick around. And this is my weird voice. Questions, John.
Oh, well,
it's time for questions, John.
Is it?
No, it's not. It's actually time to talk about Bloodstained,
a game I haven't played.
Well, there you go. I think it should be relatively short. I marathoned through Bloodstained. I don't know if any of you know this, but I'm kind of a fan of Metroidvania games.
Say what?
I know nobody has heard of this before. So yeah, I was really, really looking forward to this. This was made by what's his name? Iga, the guy that made the Symphony of the Night, stuff like that. So the short review for this game is it's Symphony of the Night, but better in a lot of ways. The longer review goes a little something like this. So this is a game. Oh God, I didn't even bring up the Wikipedia page. I can't remember.
Didn't even bring up what kind of interviewer or reviewer or whatever it is do you call yourself?
Bad.
You would be right.
That's the kind. I'm the bad kind. That's the kind. So, okay, listen, I'm going to tell you right now, I didn't pay the most attention in the world to what was happening in the story of this game.
You not paying attention to the story of a game? The hell you say?
No, I mean, I paid some attention, but see, the problem was, John, that I loaded up the game, and I was like, I want to make sure that this isn't a Money Number 9 situation. I don't need to have something on standby, right, before we play it for the dojo. So I'm going to load up the game, I'm going to play it, I'm going to make sure it isn't garbage ahead of time. But I'm going to skip over the cutscenes. That way, when we play it on the dojo, I can watch the cutscenes and be like, oh, I didn't even know that. I didn't even know that. I didn't even know that. Except then I played it for like 8 hours, and at a certain point, at like hour 4, I was like, I probably need to start listening to these cutscenes because I'm not going to play 8 hours over again. So I kind of missed the very beginning of the game. But the short synopsis is this. There's a protagonist named Miriam. She's part of the Alchemist Guild. There was this evil in the world. The alchemists had created these people that they were infused with shards of demon energy that could basically like pull the demon energy in, and then they could kill those kids. They were kids, and then get rid of the demons. Except that one of them, Miriam, was in a deep sleep, and now years later, her like friendo, this guy named God, what's his name? It's got a real stupid name. Giebel is like he's awake. He was supposed to die, but he survived, and he's like now he's got all these demons with him, and he's trying to fuck everything up. And you got to go to holy shit, you got to go to a big castle and fight your way through a lot of Vanias in order to like defeat what's going on. And there are twists and turns and betrayal and shocks. Backtracking, boss fights, powers. So, without going too far into it, this is Symphony of the Night. Actually, it's not Symphony of the Night because, Symphony of the Night had like about 2 or 3 too many mechanics in it. Like, at Symphony of the Night, eventually you could like throw a fireball. And there were like weird spells that you were supposed to do and yada, yada, yada. It's all been very streamlined. You have basically a set of crystals that you slot in. Like one of them is just like your square attack is attack with a weapon. Triangle is attack with just whatever the spell is. There's one where if you hold down R1, you can aim a spell like in a specific direction. There's one that's like a passive. There's one that's like a kind of a mechanic bonus. And then there's like a summon slot. And so as you go through the world, pretty much every enemy in the entire game will drop one of these crystals. And you can slot it in. And then like, so if there's a guy that throws fireballs, he's going to drop a crystal. Then you slot that crystal in, and you can throw fireballs the same way he can. And you can pick up all these materials in the game that you can use to upgrade that fireball throwing to make it more and more powerful.
Okay.
That all takes a magic gauge. You've got a health gauge and a magic gauge. The magic gauge both regenerates over time, and then there are also little flower pickups, which are basically the hearts that came out of the candles in Castlevania, to refill that gauge. There's a lot kind of less healing items than I feel like in this game, but there is there's so many mechanics in this game. Like there's these crafting mechanics where you can make new weapons, but you have to get like certain weapons and then you combine them with with like rare item drops from certain enemy types. And so, I need to get this. So you're going to go into the codex. You're going to find which monster drops this item. You're going to go kill him a bunch of times. You're going to get it. There's actually a really cool thing that I like where you can hold down the L2 button and you can set multiple loadouts. So you can actually have like a luck loadout if you're looking to get drops, or like just a damage loadout, or like a magic loadout. Because everything is determined on what you equip. So there are a few different types of weapons. There's like swords and then pole arms and like great swords. There's guns, all kinds of crazy stuff like that. And then there's also a whole set of sub abilities. Like if you have a sword and you do a fireball, you'll do a special attack with it. But then there's like a different type of attack for spears or great swords. And then in classic Metroidvania style, as you go through the map, you're going to kill bosses. Those bosses are going to give you powers, which then will allow you to go back and get through things that you didn't get through before. As
any good Castlevania or Metroid game would do.
Yeah. As with, I will say that there were a couple of those powers that they hid to the point where I had to go look them up on the internet.
Oh, wow.
Especially some of the later ones. Like I wasn't entirely sure just like where the fuck you want me to go. Boss fights they felt good. There's a limit to the number of like potions you can bring with you. So potions will refill your health, but there's a limit to the number that you can take with you at any one time. So it does kind of force you to, you can bully a lot of bosses, but you can't bully all of them. The game was like 12 to 14 hours long.
Okay.
Like it was a good size. There's an homage to, but not, how in Symphony of the Night, it's like you get halfway through the game and then you've got to do the entire castle over again upside down.
Yes.
There's not a time waste like that. It's a much tighter game than that. Great music, wonderful music.
Yeah.
It's totally evocative of the franchise. The graphics are good. They're a little dark. Like in actually looking at like, they came out with that demo and everybody didn't like the way it looked, and so they went back and redid a lot of the graphics to put in a lot more detail. I kind of like the way that it looked when it was a little flatter, personally. All the particle effects and everything are nice. It's interesting because there are totally enemies in this game that are they're just enemies from Castlevania, but just with a different skin on them. So it's like, oh, I've fought this guy before. There are areas in the castle that are very much kind of the same areas that you see in a lot of Castlevania games, but just retooled to be slightly different. All in all, what is it, like $20 or $30?
Yeah.
Like, I really enjoyed it. There is a new game plus mode. I feel like there's going to be a free DLC that comes out where you can play as there's a character called Zangetsu, who's kind of he's voiced by David Hayter, and he was one of the characters from the 8-bit one.
Yeah.
He was like the swordsman from the 8-bit one.
He was the main character from the...
Yeah. And he's back. He's a big part of the story. But I think there's going to be a mode later on where you can actually play through the game as him instead of as Miriam, if you want to go back through and play it over again. But all in all, just if you're into Metroidvania, and I even feel like it's a good introduction to Metroidvania because it's challenging, but there's a lot of different solutions for things. There's a lot of different... I played through the entire game with a sword, but I can feel like the entire game would be different if you had a gun, because the guns have like an infinity bullets that are weaker, but then like specific bullets that you can craft that are stronger. The only downside that I would say I had for the entire game was that there were some times where I couldn't figure out where to go next, and I literally just had to look it up because Like there's one part in the game where the thing you need to progress any further is a crystal that you get from killing an enemy, and the only hint there is there's a bounty board, and it says you got to kill 8 of those enemies. But that bounty board, you can just assume ignore it, you know. So there are a few that are a little esoteric, 2 or 3, but other than that, I had a great time. I had a wonderful time. It was played phenomenally, and then apparently there's going to be some updates and stuff. And outside of the Switch stuff that we talked about, it ran perfectly on my PlayStation 4. I haven't seen any reports of it running poorly on other consoles. So,
Okay.
yeah, that's it. It's good. I also played Kansas High Roll, but we'll talk about that another time. Let's get to the questions. Okay. mail@rageselect.com is the email address. And this week, are you ready?
Sure.
They're calling me out, John.
Of course they're calling you out.
I'm getting called out.
Yeah.
So, this person did not sign their email. I'm going to say this came from Kay. Kay says, hey, Jeff, and I'm not going to, normally I would add you to that, but since this is kind of
calling you out,
coming at me, man. So, hey, Jeff, I hate to do it, but I feel that I must pull you up on your flagrant spoilers in the podcast 2 weeks ago now.
Uh-oh.
In last week's podcast, you blatantly spoiled many plot lines from Final Fantasy VII, and this week you literally just gave away the final scene for Evangelion. I know you said that it's because these things are old, it's okay, but please understand that I'm only 24, never got a chance to see Evangelion before, so it's completely new to me, and unlike Final Fantasy VII, it's not the most well-known property, so to think everyone would know what happens is a bit of a stretch for the Final Fantasy VII remake. And I think you even talked about it at one point, because it's a new game in the form of remake, it just seems to be a dick move to spoil it, especially when there are possibly so many people playing it for the first time. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt by just being on the podcast and it being freeform and not really thinking, but as someone who is so against spoilers, really hope you think about it next time. Still loving the site and the podcast. Keep up the good work. And that's from Kay. So,
yeah, what the fuck, Jeff? What is wrong with you, you piece of shit? How dare you?
Well,
how dare you? Sorry. What are we talking about?
It's because I'm a bad man with a lot of hate in my heart for all of humanity. No, okay. So this actually this
no,
brings
it's
up a good point.
a really good point.
It brings a good point.
I'm playing. I'm not being.
Yeah. So I will say this, that in both the Evangelion case and in Final Fantasy VII, and I assume that with Final Fantasy VII we're talking about probably like that rundown that you and I had on the Square Enix conference or whatever. So here's the thing. Here's what I will say in my own defense. What I talked about happening at the end of Evangelion, or not at the end of Evangelion, but at the end of the original series, is there's a 2-parter that gets real weird. I won't say much more than that. It was very dissatisfying to a lot of people. However, one, that's not the end of the show. Like I couldn't spoil what happens at the end of Evangelion. Like it's so I don't even understand what happens at the end of Evangelion.
There are this is one of the things people may remember when the Matrix was big and the sequels were coming out and people were doing like this was kind of around the time that people were starting to do like YouTube videos like dissertations and
deep
dives, talking about the symbolisms and the message, the metaphorical messages and what everything it all means. And if you were an anime fan when Evangelion came out, this was the live journals, blogs, whatever, trying to do the exact same thing, and all of them admitting that they failed.
Right.
Because it's fucking out there.
The thing is that Michael said it last week that it's almost impossible to spoil Evangelion because I'd have to say, okay, I'm going to tell you every shocking thing that happens in the 26 episodes and the movie, and then you're going to go watch it and be like, no, but really, what the fuck? I knew what was going to happen, and still, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So, like, listen, I understand wanting to go in fresh, and with Final Fantasy VII, just briefly, that layout that I gave when we were talking about the plot of Final Fantasy VII. Look, knowing what happens in Final Fantasy VII is almost less important than playing Final Fantasy VII. Like, Final Fantasy VII is literally not about the destination, but the friends we made along the way. It's like, that's what that game
Spoilers, Jeff.
is. That's what that game is. Like the relationships between all those different characters. I didn't touch one iota. Like I may have talked about Sephiroth and Genova, but I didn't talk about what or who Genova is, or why Sephiroth is doing the thing he's trying to do, or what the Shinra Corporation is about.
I think we might have also mentioned the fate of what's her name.
But see, okay,
that's so public knowledge. I don't care if you've never played a Final Fantasy game, you know about that.
Okay, this leads into a good point. And okay, I'm going to try not to bring this all down on you, because I feel like this is also talking about spoilers in general, right? To me, spoilers have a statute of limitation, right? Like the availability of a thing plus, my rule of thumb for movies, right, or video games or whatever, is it has to be commercially available plus like a month, right? Before I would just, I would like, technically me saying Thanos snap your fingers, right, is a spoiler for Infinity War, but Infinity War's been out, most people have seen it. The problem, so I'm not a big fan of 4 minutes after Game of Thrones is over spoiling Game of Thrones on Twitter, right? Or if you got to see a pre-release copy of, say, Avengers, or what was the one?
Captain America Civil War, where everyone was saying Hail Hydra.
Right, yeah. Winter Soldier.
Or even Winter Soldier. Or even fucking Doctor Strange, where everyone was like, Dormammu, I've come to bargain.
Right.
Literally the day before the fucking movie got released.
Right. So those things I am more sensitive to, because people don't have a reasonable amount of time to do the thing. Final Fantasy VII has been out for a long time, and not just on one platform. It's not like you have to go to eBay and spend $300 to get a copy of PS1 Final Fantasy VII. They put that shit on everything.
Yeah, it's on mobile.
And while I understand that there's a remake coming out, maybe you would like to wait for the remake because you don't want to go back and play the shitty PS1 graphics version, there has to be a time when this stuff enters the zeitgeist. So, like, for example, there are probably people out there who have not played BioShock, but I constantly, when we talk about our favorite moments in video games, talk about the would you kindly reveal in BioShock, and in explicit detail, right? Because
well, it's also, let's talk about it in terms of movies. I can't say, I could sit here and go, Luke, I am your father, or not even just, Darth Vader is Luke Skywalker's father. You can't get upset with me about that.
Right.
That movie's been out for God knows how long. That line, the line of Luke, I am your father, is not even in the fucking movie.
Right.
And it's already like a meme and shit. Everyone knows it. You can't get mad at that.
Well, and so again, I do take the point that Evangelion was also not
commercially available for a really long time here in the States because of the collapse of ADV and the fact that those rights were in limbo for a really long time.
Right. But like, if I spoil the end of an NES game that's out of print, like, I don't know. To me, there has to be a statute of limitations where reasonably, and again, I don't feel like what I did was even massive spoilers. Like, I will be 100% honest with you. Saying that the episode 25 and 26 of Evangelion were weird and they were kind of inside Shinji's head and like disappointing, right? There's no specifics there. I'm not talking about exactly what happened. I'm talking about a general overview. And while I also understand people not wanting to go in with any information, all I'm saying is that there has to be some way to say that 20 years after property is out, we're able to talk about the plot in broad strokes, or things that are a meme, like, Aerith in 7. That's how many top 10 lists? Well, shocking deaths in video games, and like, boom, it's there. It's a thing that people have drawn and talked about, and it's been, it's a moment that we talk about as time goes on. And the problem is just that I feel like once you go down this road of, well, I haven't played this game that's been out for a long time yet, and it's like, well, if that's the case, then I can't ever talk about what happens in Final Fantasy VII, because, like, I could never talk about Aerith, because it would always be a spoiler to somebody who hadn't yet played Final Fantasy VII. And there's got to be somebody out there who hasn't done it, even if it's available, even after the remakes come out, right? Say 2 years after the remakes come out, if you haven't played it yet and you're just like, hey, wait a minute, I don't want to know anything. I would also
like to point out, the first part of this remake that's coming out, you won't experience that.
So the thing is that I do understand spoilers, and I very much try not to do that. Here's another thing, though, John. I was thinking about this when I was thinking about this question. I've been spoiling the end of Venom for a while now. I'm talking about what happens at the end of Venom, like just in explicit terms when it comes up about the goop monsters fighting each other. 2 goop monsters fight each other. There's a gray goop monster and a black goop monster, and I can't tell which one's the same goop monster. Nobody's ever called me out for so that's kind of where I'm coming from, Kay, is that I try my best, and even we were talking about Evangelion in the very beginning of the podcast.
Yeah.
I was talking in vague terms.
So it's one of those things that there is a statute of limitations, and yeah, we don't like spoilers, but typically we're upset we're upset when the spoilers happen either before the thing is commercially available, which for movies that's been happening a lot lately.
Yeah.
Where people who got into early screenings come out and then will say something that just totally ruins or reveals a major function of the movie that they would not have known about otherwise.
Right.
Before it's even commercially available to go see.
A lot of that also, though, is specific to those of us who know a lot of people who are film reviewers.
Yeah, no, it is. But also, it was bad for Winter Soldier and Doctor Strange, though.
Yeah.
Like, not just the people that we know that are reviewers. It was bad on the internet in general.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that we feel, like with movies, I feel like there's at least I usually say about a 2-week.
That a movie's been in the theater?
Yeah.
I mean, I still haven't talked about like what happens in Endgame outside of a literal spoiler cast.
Yeah, no. I'm just saying, it's like, for me personally, I feel like give it 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And if you want to make your little vague but not vague, like, little comments or quotes or whatever, that's fine. At that point, I had 2 weeks to go see it.
Right.
But for video games, because there's a lot more time investment in them, then at that point you want to. But if it's a release or a remake, like when they announce, we're remaking Resident Evil 2 from scratch.
Right.
If someone came up to me and was like, and here's this thing that happens in Resident Evil 2, I don't care. That game, it's a remake.
Right.
Like, I would be more, the one thing, I think the thing I would consider when it comes to remakes, the thing that I would think is more of a spoiler and for a video game release is if they did something different.
Right. Mm-hmm.
If they changed the story for the purpose of the remake. Then that's like, don't tell me, because that's new.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, 100%. So that's, and again, I want to make it certain to everybody here that I'm not dumping on this is legitimate, right?
Yeah,
Especially, I feel for you with Evangelion, but by the same token, there's the problem here is that somebody who's younger who hasn't gotten around to watching all the things, we can't just not talk about stuff that is a common cultural touchstone in the potential event that somebody hasn't gotten around to it yet.
Yeah.
That's not my concern. My concern is whether you have had a reasonable amount of time to get around to it. So that's it. Let's move on. Let's see. Danny the Bespectacled Gamer writes in and says, "Hello, Danny the Bespectacled Gamer here. It's been a while since I wrote in, so I thought I'd throw you a question. I heard about an animated movie in which there was a team-up between Batman and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yes.
It just sounded so random to me, and yet I'm more interested in this than I have been in the last several of these DC animated movies. So I'll put it to you. What team-ups or crossovers or otherwise unrelated characters or teams would you see and how would they meet? Mad Max and John Wick, He-Man and the Hulk, Aliens meets Powerpuff Girls. The possibilities are endless. Thanks for reading my question and all the fine work you do, Ray John. And as always, you've been bespectacled." From Dandy, the Bespectacled Gamer.
So before we actually answer the question,
yes,
Batman versus Teenage Mutant Turtles is an actual animated movie. I haven't seen it yet. I heard it's actually pretty good.
Okay.
But it's based on an actual comic, which there is now an actual sequel to that comic that has actually just come out recently.
Yeah, right.
So there are 2 Batman versus or meets the TMNT crossover books, and they're both excellent. There's also, which is really crazy because there's also a Ghostbusters Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles crossover, and what's funny is that book ties into the main Ghostbusters book,
and
also opens up the possibility of crossing over with other versions of Ghostbusters, like they crossed over with the real Ghostbusters, like Ghostbusters crossed over with the real Ghostbusters cartoon, which then crossed over with the all-female Ghostbusters movie universe. But the Ninja Turtles from that were transferring different dimensions, which is how they ended up in the DC Comics. So technically, Ghostbusters and Batman totally in the same continuity. Also, right now, as of this week, issue number 1 of Ghostbusters meets the Transformers just came out.
The answer that I generally have to this question is no. I don't like the idea of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and the Ghostbusters meeting, and I'm like, oh God, why? They don't belong in the same world. Talking turtles and scientists, this isn't.
But you should totally have Turtles and Daredevil crossover because technically they're inspired.
Shredder and the Hand join forces. They got
the Foot and the Hand join forces.
The Foot and Hand.
Well, you know that's actually where the joke is, that the canister that caused Matt Murdock to be blinded and get his superpowers is the same thing that was.
Oh, it's the mutagen that fell into the sewers.
Daredevil was trained by a man named Stick. The Turtles were trained by a man named named Splinter.
Jesus.
They fight the Foot. Daredevil fights the Hand. That's purpose on purpose.
Okay.
So technically, Daredevil and Batman. No, I'm joking. One of my other favorite comic crossovers that I actually, now that they've done Batman meets the TMNT, I want them to do another one of these. I want them to do Justice League Power Rangers.
Okay.
As an animated movie and get all the original Power Ranger actors to actually voice act their characters.
Yeah.
Because with the exception of the Yellow Ranger, because she's passed away.
Right.
But get as many as they can back to voice all those characters, because I think that'd be fucking great. That's what I want to see as an animated thing.
Okay.
But that's not what he's asking, because he's asking, like, what
brand new team ups would you like to see?
What brand new team ups that you don't already know about that you would like to see?
Yeah. The only one that comes to mind is, and I know, John, that it's generally considered to be a very terrible movie, but I do kind of like Freddy versus Jason.
Okay.
And I kind of wish that they would expand on that a little bit and just have a full-on Leatherface,
Monster
Michael
Mash.
Myers, Freddy, Jason,
Slasher fest.
Chucky, just bring them all in there, man, and let's battle Royale. Like, yeah, that it's just something happens, like kind of like the end of Cabin in the Woods, right, with all the monsters there.
Yeah.
But or at least continue that, right? You have the Freddy versus Jason 2, and then you have Leatherface versus.
Well, there was originally supposed to be a sequel to that, right? It was supposed to be Freddy versus Jason versus Ash.
Oh.
And it was like production actually got really far, but then like they didn't want certain things to happen, and like they didn't want, like, it was just this whole thing that each company was arguing over like how each property would be presented, and it ended up never happening. But that was actually like for a long time in was planned to be made.
I remember that. But yeah, I mean that's more along my lines where I'm not the continuity of horror movies is so fucked up anyway that like might as well. I mean, like, who's to say that Leatherface's shenanigans aren't happening in the same world as Jason Voorhees' shenanigans, right? So yeah, bring them all together. Just road trip Leatherface up. I don't know where they would meet, like Chicago or something.
Yeah,
bring in
Manhattan.
Yeah, bring them all in, and make them fight. Make them fight each other.
But yeah, no. I would see me. I already have this whole like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen style team up of like 80s TV show characters in my head, like Jessica Fletcher from Murder, She Wrote, MacGyver, Magnum PI, the A-Team.
Sure.
At least B.A. Baracus from the A-Team. You don't need the others, but just, you need the muscle.
Yeah.
You get all these characters together in like one big mystery thing. Knight Rider's fucking there. You get all the major players and do like this League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, not the movie, but the comic based kind of thing where it's all of them working together.
Did they have an 80s team?
No, I think they were. He was planning on it, but like the books kind of don't sell.
Alan Moore's a crazy person.
Alan Moore's crazy.
So yeah.
But yeah, so that was kind of the thing, is that he wanted to do like a different generation, but then also he couldn't really, because here's the thing is that the reason he can use the characters he uses in all the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen books is they're all
public domain
characters.
Yeah.
Now he did, I think, in one of the books make allusions to Harry Potter.
Uh-huh.
And like Harry Potter characters and stuff like that. But yeah.
Okay.
I know there's been a lot of fan art of people who make.
I'm just looking at some of these. What is that? Who is that one guy with the big shotgun? I recognize him. It's like Lydia, Scully, Edward Scissorhands, Rufus from Bill and Ted, and Zach from Saved by the Bell. There's this one with what's it? Doc, MacGyver, B.A., what's his name from Big Trouble in Little China? Jack Burton and Flashdance?
Yeah.
I don't know why Flashdance is in there, but I know she's got a name. I know her name isn't Flashdance, but
yeah,
something.
But yeah, like that's kind of like my thing that I constantly want, like, is this weird crossover. And then if they want to get like real, like not real worldy with it, like get some like supernatural elements, throw in Carl Kolchak, from Night Stalker in there, because that'd be fucking awesome. Even though he's a little bit before he's like in the late 70s, not in the 80s.
Okay.
But yeah, like I don't know. Like that's where my head's been at recently. You can kind of tell that I've been watching a lot of Murder, She Wrote.
I hadn't picked up on that, John.
I'm on season 4 of a 12-season binge watch.
I hadn't picked up on that. Well, it's funny too, because I was just thinking when you were talking about that, about how Matt was over here and he was talking about there's a Evangelion versus Godzilla thing.
Yeah.
And I was talking with him about it, and I was just like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, Evangelion is like this whole weird, like, psychological, mystical.
Well, it's because the creator of Evangelion directed Shin Godzilla.
No, I know that, but like, they don't belong. They don't fight each other. They shouldn't never fight each other because.
Yeah. I love it when they were doing promotional work for the movie, and they actually released stickers that were their nerve logos. Except how it says like God is in heaven and whatever.
Yeah.
It said Godzilla is on Earth and.
Nice. All right, well, let's do some Discord questions. I don't really understand how to. I don't know how to answer this one, but Nathan Lilly writes in and says, "Hey, Ragecast, this is a question specifically for Jeff, but obviously, John, if you have any relevant experience or input, it'd be awesome to hear. I wonder if Jeff is able to get feedback from other Let's Play type people. Seems to be among the oddest industries to do that for. I remember when I heard a podcast from the Super Best Friends before they disbanded. One of the hosts said the best way to get started is to begin 10 years ago. LOL." Yeah, that is good advice. Get started way earlier. I don't really know any other Let's Play people, and I get real worried about kind of, what is that, crypto memory, right? Where it's like you hear something, and then you forget that you heard it from somebody else, and then you just think it was, your brain is just like, this is funny, and then you just say it like it's your own joke, even though you're just taking somebody else's thing.
Yeah.
Totally happens.
It
or
does.
Somebody will make a joke or make an observation, and if it's somebody that you respect, a lot of times it's hard to keep from parroting that stuff back out. Like, I don't know. Somebody makes a really good point, right? Then it's hard to just not bring that point up in a lot of ways.
So, I mean, the question is how to get feedback from other...
It just says, I wonder if Jeff is able to get feedback from other Let's Play type people. I don't know any other Let's Play type people, really.
I mean, we don't really know any other people who are, like, big in Let's Plays to get feedback.
Yeah. I mean, I know some Twitch folks, but most of them are just doing it for fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't really know that many other Let's Players. It's really frustrating, and I think, honestly, so I do watch Game Theorist, Game Theory, and he actually put out a recent video where he was talking about the way that YouTube works and the industry, and I think I understand what is happening with the Rage Select channel. And it's that we fucking curse and we say bad words.
Yeah.
And we play violent video games and we say bad words. And that as YouTube has squeezed the pipeline more and more for what is acceptable for to monetize, which, by the way, I just would let everybody know, I have been experimenting with monetizing some of the videos and then seeing if they do better than non-monetized videos. And I think I'm just about done with that because they don't really. But that I think that the decline in hits that I've been seeing is because my content isn't safe for advertisers, and that YouTube not only doesn't let me monetize it, but I think it also puts it further down in search rankings, doesn't serve it up to people before it serves up other friendlier stuff in your subscription box. And that, you know, I like, look, there's obviously been a large drop off in the amount of people that watch Rage. Like, this is not a conspiracy or something I'm ashamed of. It's just something that's happened, right? Some videos, some part twos will barely crack 500 hits sometimes. Now, they generally tend to make it up over weeks, but there's just not as many people clicking on day one and looking at Rage Select as there used to be. But the number of subscribers that I have on YouTube has been the same. It's not like one of those things where, you know, when somebody on YouTube fucks up and they start losing subscribers.
Yeah.
I've had 12,000 subscribers for a while now. And the fact that that I have to believe that of those 12,000 people that YouTube is just not serving up my videos to a good chunk of them.
Yeah.
And whether that's because they didn't click on them because they thought I was boring and YouTube just naturally depressed it in what they're doing, or whether the bell got implemented and those subscribers or whether they just never unsubscribe. I have to think that there's some shenanigans going on, because I don't think I can have 12,000 subscribers and have this few people actually clicking through into a video. And it just kind of happened over time a little bit. So I don't know. All that to say is it's frustrating because you never know what the fuck Google is doing. You don't know what they're doing behind the scenes to your videos, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes
it seems like they don't even know what they're doing to behind the scenes to their videos.
I sometimes rub up against parts of conservative YouTube. My father's conservative, and, you know, we're talking about like, so-and-so said that YouTube's been shadow banning his videos and not letting him monetize anything. And I'm just like, welcome to the fucking party, pal. Like, us Let's Players have been dealing with this shit for a decade now. Oh, it's nice of you to come over here and be like, my talk show that I do on YouTube is getting lowered in the rankings. Yeah. So anyway, the answer to this question is I don't really have anybody that I know to talk to. And if I did know, a lot of on YouTube, it's what do they call it? It's like the lunch table when you're in grade school, where people are telling you, "No, I totally heard from my friend that, you know, what you have to do is you have to start a new channel and then just only put." Like, oh, you have too many unpublished videos on your channel, because all the Patreon videos are unpublished on my channel. It's like, oh, well, because YouTube sees that you've got all these unpublished videos, but they're still getting hits, and then that like freaks out the algorithm. So you need to do is create a new channel and take all of your unpublished videos and put them on that other channel in order to make the main channel just publish videos, because that'll blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
So like our Leisure Suit Larry videos did very well for some reason. I don't know what the reason is. Like, I have no idea what the reason is. Sometimes, you know, I'll tag a developer. Sometimes I'll put something really evocative in the thumbnail, and it seems like that works sometimes. But sometimes it's just shrug your shoulders, question mark. Like, there's very little to know. I'd be more than happy if YouTube would just tell me what the fuck it was
I think
wanted.
Everyone would be more than happy if just YouTube would tell anyone what the fuck it was.
Yeah, I agree. Also, that game theory video is really good, because it's about how
he's done a couple of them, but they've all been pretty good.
How YouTube is squeezing out this with Let's Plays and demos and even trailers and stuff for very violent video games, that YouTube is squeezing the audience on the violence down, and at the same time launching a console whose launch is going to have like Doom Eternal and Mortal Kombat 11 and things that have been
and it has a bunch of functions for people to stream on YouTube those games.
Yeah, it's very weird.
Yeah, it's like the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing.
That's Google all over. Kate Josie writes in and says, "Dear Jeff and John, I've been on a social media cleanse for over 2 weeks now. To clarify, I mean Facebook and Instagram. Still use YouTube, but I don't see that as much of social media as more of a high-tech VHF station.
Okay.
I use Discord because the Rage Select community is filled with good people. I don't use anything else. Logged into Facebook because I needed a file download from Messenger. Scrolled through about 10 stories on Facebook and didn't care about any of it. Now I'm sitting here feeling a little left out of the loop. I know that in reality that's not true, but I feel that sad brain chemical making me feel like I'm losing touch with the world. Did this happen to you? If so, when did you get over it? Also, I really don't plan on being active on those platforms simply because it started to really make me depressed and self-conscious about my body and social standing. I don't feel these things when I'm off it, apart from the normal amount of self-doubt and am I pretty enough? I know I said I wouldn't do a serious question, but when you have a long time to think about your life, these things come out. Thanks so much, and sorry for the long question.
This is something you would be able to answer.
I can. So there's a word that describes it. You probably have heard it. It's called FOMO. It's fear of missing out. And a lot of times it's what I've heard about it more and more, the idea of not being on social media and seeing a thing that happens, et cetera, et cetera. So here's what I would say, Kate. It did take me a little while. In fact, I used to not be on Facebook, and then I would kind of slip back into being on Facebook, and I don't even posting on Facebook, but just looking at it.
Yeah.
And then I would go off it, and then I would go back onto it. When I go off it, I go back onto it. Eventually, I just stopped opening it. I think a lot of it was when I uninstalled the app from my phone, so I couldn't just tap one button. I had to open a browser and just literally type in Facebook. Whereas I had an app for Imager, so I could just boop, look at cat pictures, boop, look at dog pictures. And I had my books. It takes a little time, I feel like, to kind of get away from that stuff. I have, though, also, I will tell you this. Consider the following, Kate Josie. I do not believe, John, that we were ever built, not built, that we are capable of absorbing the amount of information that we are handing to ourselves on a daily basis through our phones, whether that's Facebook, Twitter, whether it's news, whether it's things that your friends are doing, whether it's pictures on Instagram. Like, I still remember what it was like before all this, and I think that we have gotten to a point where we feel like overstimulation is the norm, and so then whenever we are regularly stimulated, it feels boring. But I think that the good news is that you can reset your expectation. It just takes time to do. I, for one, have been trying real hard to not do anything and not feel bad about not doing anything. To just play a game, cook a little bit, do rage select, and then I don't really do very much else. Like, I don't, but I also don't feel bad about it, about like not going out to a wrestling show or,
how dare you?
Grants at the salsa festival. Like, my life was, I had too much shit going on in my life last year, and it burned me out. And I've actually seen my friends getting burned out from just having this idea that you've got to be doing stuff all the time, or that boredom is so terrible that you must avoid it at all costs. And I feel like the thing that most people go to is the phone in that case. So it took a little while for me, probably about a year. I don't go to Facebook anymore except to post Rage Select videos and sometimes to look at the comments on Rage Select videos. But it does take time, especially because it's real easy to slip into doing it. And I highly recommend that. Okay, here's what I recommend. Like, here's Jeff's thing. Set your phone to grayscale. Set the color on your phone to grayscale. Your phone and leave it on silent all the time, right? Don't ever let it make noise, and don't ever let it have color, because social media apps use things like red, big kind of poppy icons to get you to go, it stimulates your brain when you see the color red. I got to look at that, right? Or they'll use a little number of, like, say, unread messages. You've got, how many unread messages I have right now? I've got like 1,000 unread messages in my inbox. I don't give a shit anymore. Sometimes I look at them, sometimes I don't. But specifically, I'd say take your phone, set it to silent unless you have, responsibilities, and set it to grayscale so that, because the other thing with grayscale is that it makes everything less interesting to look at. So I would go to Imager instead of Facebook, but everything on Imager is also in black and white. So it's just less interesting to look at than the world around me, which is in color. So that's where I'm at. I'm now an old man,
Yeah, you are.
Oh, you kids and your phones. You're staring at your phones. Also, you should read books on your phones. Books are totally available on your phones. Download the Kindle app. You can read a book on your phone. You find any book. Literally any book. It doesn't matter what it is. Don't read a website. Read a book. And nonfiction, fiction, poetry, biography of somebody, like trashy romance, trashy pulp detective, trashy science fiction. You can read George R.R. Martin's books or William Shakespeare or anything. Read something. Just read something. Read something that's not a website. Read a book. Read a book. Find a book and read a book.
Okay.
I like books.
I've got nothing to say on that subject because I'm bad at social media, but I'm also like not like I'm kind of in this weird thing where I don't like scour it every minute of my life.
Yeah.
And I also typically only post on it to kind of post updates about me, like, hey, this is something cool that I found, or
right.
Hey, this is something cool that I did, or here's 157 pictures of a wrestling show that I went to. Enjoy.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I use Facebook for. I also have Instagram as well, and then I probably update Instagram more than I update anything, which then gets updated to Facebook and Twitter. But I don't really browse Twitter all that much.
Mm-hmm.
Like I glance at Twitter.
I do still fuck around with Twitter a little bit, but not a lot. I have a tip. If you want to get off Instagram, you can do what I did, where somebody in Russia tries to log into your account, and an Instagram is like, hey, did you log in Russia? And I say no, and they're like, cool, change your password. And I'm like, I don't want to. And then it never lets you log into Instagram ever again. So you can't. So there's a cookie. Every time you go there, it's like, change your password. And I'm like, no, change your password.
Why?
No. Change your password. No. Why what?
Why wouldn't you just change your password?
Because I don't fucking like Instagram. I don't really use it.
Oh, okay.
Like, I look at what you and Amanda post on Instagram, but like I don't browse Instagram.
Okay.
Like I don't like social media.
I noticed.
I like reading my books, drinking my beers, and
Old man yells at cloud.
and making puppets.
In this case, digital cloud.
Say dirty words on the internet. Those are my hobbies, John. Talking to all the fine folks out there. So over the years how I've talked about that book series, that Honor Harrington book series a bunch of times.
Yeah,
Lady
sure.
Spaceship Captain. Turns out there's like 7 spinoff books that I didn't read, and I started on the first one a couple weeks back, and I'm just about done with it. And it's like then I got to alternate between that one and the other spinoff series. That one's about a bunch of freedom fighters, and then the other one's about a bunch of space captains. And I'm like, fuck, I got like another 9 books just to finish. And then there's like a bunch of short story collections that I'm not sure that I wanted to read, but that if I read like 85% of the books in this universe, I might as well just go through and do the rest of them. I might as well. I mean, what am I going to do with my life otherwise? Come on. Use your head, John.
For those wondering, all I hear is wah 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 wah. I checked out as soon as you started talking about the book series.
You got to read my book. You got to read a book, not my book. I haven't written a book. Read a book. Read a book.
That should be that. You should write a book that just says "read a book."
Scott!
And then it's about reading books.
Good for your mind. Makes you better thinking peoples. Read a book.
You should read a book by Jason Murphy.
Yeah.
He's written a few.
Yeah.
You should go buy those. You could probably buy them on a phone.
Yeah. You could probably buy them off of Amazon links on Rage Select and help us out.
Yeah. But
go read the Black Goat Motorcycle Club.
Yeah. Go read a book by someone whose work you like.
Mm-hmm.
That's a plug out of nowhere for no reason.
Or go find somebody whose work you like and then read one of the books that they mention in their videos that they do, right?
Yeah.
Go read a book. Any book. Marmal says, with Mortal Kombat 11 having Kerry Hiroyuki Tagawa's skin for Shang Tsung, got me thinking, which skin DLC would you like to see in a video game? Personally, while playing the Shang Tsung combat towers, seeing the silhouettes on the last tower and it saying Raiden gave me a little bit of hope that they may include a Christopher Lambert skin, but was slightly let down. Keep the great work. Keep raging. Stay raging, you little patron from Marvel.
So what skin is he talking about?
The Shang Tsung in
having the trench coat jacket thing.
No, the fact that his face is the actor from
the
Mortal Kombat movie.
Yeah,
right.
It's the act. Yeah.
And then he's saying if you could have, another skin.
I thought Christopher Lambert was great in that movie. Christopher Lambert, and also hearing all the behind the scenes stories about Christopher Lambert during the making of that movie is fucking amazing. And if you thought he was like, if you're like, oh, I don't care about Christopher, you hear those stories, and it's fucking great.
I would like free DLC that makes the Avengers in that Avengers game look like the Avengers on my movie screen.
I just want DLC to make them not look like shit.
Yeah.
They don't have to look like the movie Avengers. Just make costumes and character models that don't look like garbage.
I'm trying to think of I'm trying to think of like video games that were also movies, so that we have like characters in video games that were also actors in movies.
That's the question.
The question is, which skin DLC would you like to see in a video game? Question mark. Which is a very open-ended question.
Okay.
I'm just taking from his example. I'm just kind of thinking along those lines about movies, video game movies.
I really hope that the Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 game, which comes out in a few weeks, if I'm not mistaken.
Believe so.
I hope that it also has like multiple skins for the characters, because that would be awesome.
I agree. I don't really know the answer to this question. I don't know that I'm as hung up on skins. Yeah. Let's see. Let's do a couple more here. Rayman Ryan says, Dear Jeff and John, I've noticed recently that the film industry has been getting a lot of things right. One example that springs to mind is the director of that Sonic movie coming out and saying, we know that you're not happy. Things will change before the movie is released. Also, there seems to be a lot more passion projects, interesting new stories being told, and generally, it's a fairly good time to be a movie fan. Now, I understand that comparing the two industries is going to be tricky as they face very different challenges, but nevertheless, my question is, what lessons do you think that the games industry could learn from its older brother, the film industry, so that they can avoid a lot of the pitfalls and scandal the film industry went through in the past? I feel the golden age of Hollywood, where actors were contracted to work horrible hours to feed the Veritius. I don't know what that word means.
Veritas?
No. Varieties of...
Varieties.
Anyway, to feed the monster that the public demands is very similar to the ongoing crunch debate. Just interested in hearing your thoughts. Keep on raging, your loyal patron. And that's from Ryan. So what lessons can the video game industry learn from the movie industry?
Well, I feel like right now they're really learning that maybe there should be unions.
Is it kind of every industry learning that?
Yeah. Or, that they should unionize because of the fact that how bad it is.
Yeah.
And soon or later we're going to get gaming guilds, like the Coders Guild of America and the
Man, I wouldn't count on that.
No, I don't think so either. But
we hate unions so much in this country. I don't know. See, the thing is that they're not equivalent. They're not one-to-one. When you think about like what happens behind the scenes.
As much as video games at times try to emulate movies in what you're playing, they try to evoke the same things that movies do, but with what you're playing in a game.
Yeah.
They're not one-to-one. They're two different things.
I mean, and just so it doesn't sound like I'm being dismissive here, when you talk about like abusive contracts and crunch and stuff like that, I don't just think that's a video game industry problem.
That's a problem all over.
I know a lot of people, they're doing a lot of work for not very much money because that's what the industry wants. Or, there was this story about was it Riot Games, where they were talking about forcing the employees to sign agreements so that any suit brought against the company had to be decided in a forced arbitration situation where the arbiter was hired by the company, and then the person who brought the complaint had to abide by whatever the arbiter said. Like, they couldn't appeal it to another court or whatever.
Yeah.
That's not just the game industry. That shit happens all over the place.
Yeah.
Like, tons of industries have that same issue.
Yeah.
Tons of industries have the same thing where they work people super fucking hard. I mean, the crunch is one of those things where I don't know, it's so expected in the video game industry that I feel like it seems strange to me. But I mean, people in offices get to the deadline of a project, and you're going to be staying there overnight and working, and not seeing your family for a long time. Like, people have been working shitty jobs for a long time, and jobs have been shitty to people for a long time.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I just don't feel like there's as much of a one-to-one between Hollywood and the game industry, except maybe the only thing that I could say is that I think that Hollywood does better when they let creative people do good work without a lot of interference, and that the game industry, I think that can be a good thing as well. That by and large, we've seen a lot of projects in both the video game and the movie industry be ruined by essentially watered down studio overreach to make a lowest common denominator.
Oh, yeah.
This will appeal to everyone, and then it just doesn't appeal to anyone because everybody's just like, well, it's fine. Whereas, when you have somebody with a real creative vision and then you give them the resources to try to make that creative vision, I feel like that's when you end up with something really special.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's the only thing that really comes to mind. John, you got anything else?
I don't know.
All right, we got a couple more here, and then we're going to be done. Septum Sin says, Dear Rage Lords, I really love the recent puppet intro. Any thoughts on doing a small run puppet series? I think that was for the Samurai Showdown puppet intro. Septum Sin, I mean, not to pull back the curtain too much, but one of my co-hosts on Rage Select wanted to do a narrative, puppet narrative. I've always worried about what that would entail, and whether it would appeal to people more than anything else.
Oh yeah, no, and he's not talking about me, but I have also pitched like you should do videos that are not tied to games and do stuff where you could even do callbacks, and even had proposed jokes that were callbacks to other videos, kind of thing, like long-term planning and writing and things like that. And it's part of it is I know part of the reason is that it's hard enough to get everyone over here to record the videos in the first place. To get someone, to get a bunch of people over here to record a narrative style video is
a lot of it is there's that. I mean, there's logistics. There's always logistics. There's some equipment stuff. Like my camera's fucking terrible. I got a terrible camera. In fact, I feel really guilty because I've been saving up this month eating peanut butter sandwiches to get an Xbox One X. And then when I was at Best Buy looking at the Xbox One X's, when I was buying Samurai Showdown, I was like, oh shit, you could probably get a DSLR for $400, but because my camera sucks. And I don't have the mics or stuff like that. I mean, my setup is mostly to be done in this room, and while I can fake outside a little bit, it's not always the best. A lot of it also just comes down to what I mean. Like, I'm not a plot writer. I'm an off the cuff guy.
Yeah, a lot of the skits are very off the cuff and very. Like, sometimes we'll even be doing a skit, and through the course of doing a skit, we'll change what the skit is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, it's...
Because some beat comes off better, and it's like, oh, no, let's just do that instead of what we were thinking of before. The idea of writing a whole thing, I mean, I don't know. Maybe, on the other hand, I don't know. Listen, I don't want to be a gloomy Gus or anything, but like I put up when I made the first Rage Select Theater, right? And I kind of had it under my pocket. Got into a scrape where I didn't have a video. Decided to put that up instead of the video that I was going to put up that day. Put it up. It did relatively well, as does any new concept video. Did the second one. Did significantly less numbers than the first one. And so it made me wonder whether, and I have a third one that I just haven't really put all the way together yet because, we've had enough intros that I could totally do. We had the Inglourious Bastards one, and, there's been all kinds of stuff that we've done. And it's just the question is, well, if people wanted to watch that stuff, great. But then also the question comes like, do I need to put them on a different channel? Do I need to go in and do Rage Select Theater but bleep out all the bad words and then create a brand new channel and put it over there in the hopes that YouTube doesn't suppress the its rankings, right?
Yeah.
Is it possible that all that stuff I was talking about before also would touch, like, let's say I did a puppet series. I have no doubt that the people that love Rage Select would enjoy it immensely.
Yeah.
But if my channel is fucked, or if using profanity means that I can't get my videos out to very many people, then it requires something a lot different than just the idea of having a narrative.
Yeah. So to
also, I'm not
answer
a
your question, have we thought about it? Yes, it's been thought about. It's been pitched around. It's been mentioned by more than a few people, I feel like. And I think at one point there was a period where I was going to do something that was somewhat narrative based that I pitched to you at one point, and then just never ended up getting around to it because it ended up being way too much to look into and figure out the logistics of it and everything. But a
lot of it too is just, I mean, you guys got to understand that I edit everything. So the idea of, I would love nothing more than to have somebody to help me to edit intros, because, you know, like, we put together all these complicated. This week, the reason that it went Samurai Showdown Part 1, Hitman, Samurai Showdown Part 2 was because I literally needed an extra day to finish the intro for Samurai Showdown Part 2 because it got complicated on me, and I decided to do it. That when I did the Retro City Rampage, I made the little pixel Jeff.
Yeah.
It was like 4 hours of work that was just there. And one of the things that, going back to the Facebook question, I've been trying to do is not let even Rage Select, which I love and is my baby and I do a lot of work with, but it can't eat my entire life. It can't be all I ever do, or else I get real sad and bummed out and bad things in my brains. So, but yes, we have considered it. I don't know. I just need a good idea or a script or something that I can do without having to do a million hours of work.
yeah,
So.
I agree.
All right, one more. Ken Not Keith writes in and says, "What's up, Jeff and John? I just finally got settled into my new house in St. George, Utah, and my wife and I are starting a podcast. My wife has an insane amount of knowledge of The Simpsons, so we decided to start recording a podcast called Duff and Donuts. The logo is attached to the email if you'd like to take a look. The question I have for you is, what are some good ways to keep on task when doing a podcast? I had this problem before when I was doing a podcast with a few friends when they would get off topic and I couldn't reel them back in. So what are some tricks to stay on task and not tangent too much, but also be funny and entertaining with the subject you're talking about? Thanks a bunch, Kid Not Keith." And then he just sent me a link to the podcast. So, it's a pretty good logo.
I mean, back when I was doing Geek Bombast more, the first time, I typically would kind of be the one to reel off of tangents. I mean, sometimes I would go off on tangents. I mean, we've done it here on this.
No, you and me on a tangent?
Yeah.
Come on, get out of here, John.
But yeah, but on Geek Bombast, I was more the guy that if I would kind of I let tangents go.
Yeah.
But there is a point where I kind of have to also look at the time and be like, hey, I want these podcasts to be X amount of minutes. And then it's kind of a thing where I have to be like, you know, give the signal of fucking wrap this tangent up.
Right.
Or I come in and say something that's like, but let's bring us back on topic, you know. It's just it's different for each podcast because it's different people.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like I'm sure the way Jeff deals with me in tangents is different than the way he deals with Matt or Michael. Slightly, not like extremely different, but but slightly, because one is maybe more inclined to go on tangents.
I don't use the whip when you go on a tangent, so it's different, slightly different.
Yeah, one of us might be more inclined. One of us may never go on tangents, for all I know.
Yeah,
because I don't listen to the podcasts that I'm not on, and I don't listen to the ones that I am on because I'm on them. But
ringing endorsement.
But
it is kind of weird to listen to yourself on a podcast.
Oh no, trust me.
Damn, I'm smooth. Listen to me.
You know, so it's kind of one of those things where sometimes you got to be that guy that just says, "Hey, we've gotten," but you don't be a dick about it. You don't be like, "Hey, stop on this tangent." You got to be like, all right, guys, let's get back on topic. You know, kind of like,
sure,
right, let's kind of reel it back in a little bit. You gotta, you know. Obviously, you're with your friends. You know how they are, and you know how to interact with them, and you just kind of you've got to be the one that's got to be on point if you're the person running the podcast.
I think that you've hit on the solution. There's got to be somebody running the podcast, right? Like, there's got to be somebody who's, for the most part, the first person you hear in the beginning, right? Who is running the podcast, and the other people on your podcast need to know that you're so for the Rage Like podcast, for example, it's pretty easy because I set the agenda, right? Like, I don't send John a list of the links we're going to be looking at. Some of the stories some of the stories you don't know, but and I set them up. So when we're going to move on to the next thing, we just kind of move on to the next thing. And then I pick the questions, right? Yeah. I don't send you the questions ahead of time. So you're more here reacting kind of the stuff. And so I guess in a really cynical way, it's like by withholding any information from you, I am able to control where we go relatively easily.
Well,
but
and actually, even then, like back when I was doing Geek Bombast, like I would actually put formats. Like I would actually do a format thing where it's like, hey, these are the 4 news items that we're going to talk about this week, and we'll email back and forth like as the week's going up, building up to the day before we're going to do the podcast. It's like, oh, I really want to talk about this book. I want to talk about this comic. I want to talk about this comic, or I want to talk about this video game, or I want to talk about this movie. And then literally the day that we're set to record, I would just respond with this format of intro, news, this news item with a link to it, this news item to a link to it, then reviews, and then I would literally say this is what we're going to talk about, so that ahead of time everyone can kind of have their thoughts on what they're going to say. And then sometimes that works out well in that because they know exactly what to get to, they don't go on tangents as much because they know what our agenda is and how much time we've got to squeeze all that into. But you're right. What you said is really someone has to be running the podcast, and
because I've been on podcasts that don't have people that are super strong leadership, and I feel like
I think I know which podcast you're talking about.
And I feel like I've been on a few different ones, and I feel like a lot of times without somebody who kind of knows where the ship is going, right?
Yeah,
you can get. Essentially, other people can start to kind of take over that. Other personalities can take over that podcast, right? Like when we were on Spill, when I was on Spill, Corey ran the Rage Select or the Spill podcast, the video game, the Loading Bar podcast. God damn, and so I would sit back and just wait for my opportunity to say things. And now I run the podcast. So it's like I'm out front. But mostly it's just that. It's that, in all honesty, here's what I would say. If you have a problem with people who won't pay any attention to your authority and they keep on just trying to drag your podcast off in another direction, maybe don't have them on your podcast. Or
talk to them off mic. Just say, hey.
Or you can just cut what you don't want out of your podcast. You wanted to record an hour-long podcast, record a 3-hour podcast and chop out everything that you don't like, and you can do it that way. That's kind of a dick move, but I would say if you're having a really hard time with that, as far as actual techniques, I mean, anyway, or speaking of, and then just make a joke about how bad you are at segues, but don't do that because that's mine. Hashtag trademarked. That's how hashtags work. Trademark Jeff's bad segues. Speaking of things that make the internet angry, I think we're done, John.
Nice.
See? That's how you do it, Ken. That's it. Mail@rageselect.com is the email address. Our questions are empty. The question barrel is dry. So if you want your question answered, get it in. Write it down. Write it like in a book. Write it down. Put it in email, electronic mail, and send it to mail@rageselect.com. And I will look at it and decide whether to read it. John, you got anything?
No.
Okay. In that case, we're done, and it's time. Actually, in all the talk about segues, I forgot to think of anything to end this podcast with. So it's just slowly fade out as I babble on into oblivion about Dark Souls and Evangelion. And don't go on Facebook.